Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Port Phillip City Council. The City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of this land, the people of the Kulin Nations. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continued relationship to this land. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid style and is streamed via Council's webcast page and Facebook Live. Streams and recordings of Council meetings are copyrighted and cannot be altered, reproduced, or republished without the permission of Council. If we experience any technical difficulties this evening, we will adjourn the meeting for a short time to resolve the issue. I remind attendees that any member of the public addressing Council must extend due courtesy and respect to Council and the processes under which it operates, and must take direction from the Chair, myself, whenever called on to do so. Speakers must remain respectful, and statements or questions must not be defamatory, offensive, or objectionable, aimed at embarrassing a councillor or a member of Council staff, or relate to a matter outside the powers of the Council. I ask attendees to please not approach the councillors at their desks during the meeting. If you have any documents, please see the ladies at the door from the governance team, and they can help distribute any items. First item, I'd like to give a little shout out and congratulations to Teresa. These are actually your gloves. I don't want people to rightly or wrongly think they're mine. But you show up to all our council meetings and you really show us all up at the gym. I believe this is for 500 sessions. Can you come on up and receive these? And our dedicated 10th councillor, but also noting that you are cancer-free for 11 years. Well done. Really happy with that. Thanks, Teresa. The first item we have tonight is the apologies. So, councillors, I have a leave of absence request to note for Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark is seeking a leave of absence from the 2nd of August to the 18th of August 2024. Councillors, I now seek a mover for this motion. Councillor Pearl, seconded by Councillor Martin. Thank you. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. On to the minutes of previous meetings. Councillors, the minutes of the council meeting on the 3rd of July 2024 have been circulated. Are there any questions of these minutes? No. If not, I'm looking for someone to move this or something else. Thank you, Councillor Martin. Who would like to second it? Hands up quick. Councillor Pearl, thank you. And let's go to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Declarations of conflicts of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest in a matter may discuss at tonight's meeting? CEO?
Through you, Mayor. I have a conflict of interest in relation to the St Kilda Triangle Live Music Venue, Stage 2, targeted market engagement outcomes and next steps, due to my wife's employment interests. Noting I've had no part in any advice to Council in regards to this item. I haven't been involved in the preparation or review of the report. And I've disclosed that interest consistently to Council throughout this process. I will stay in the meeting tonight because this is all now publicly available information and I'm not a decision maker.
Thank you. Any other conflicts of interest? Declarations? All right, I'd like to declare an interest in relation to 14.1, which is my notice of motion in relation to Barak Beacon. I'm currently renting a property in the nearby area for a limited time. And while I do not believe this creates a general or material conflict of interest, in the interest of full transparency, I'm placing on the public record. Okay, councillors, tonight we have 2 condolence motions. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bond.
Just to clarify, that's 14.2, not 14.1.
Yeah, sorry, did I say it wrong? Sorry, 14.2, good point. Yeah, that's right, 14.2 to be clear, called Barak Beacon notice of motion. Thank you. Councillors, we have 2 condolence motions that have been added to tonight's agenda. Carrie McKendrick, I'm going to ask for Carrie McKendrick, the first one. What? You want me to start with James Mitchell? Okay, sorry, I'll flip the order. We'll start with a condolence motion for James Mitchell, and I'll ask Peter Martin to read, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Mitchell joined the Port Melbourne Council on the 2nd of November 1968 under the banner of the Australian Labor Party. His leadership extended to the role as Mayor of Port Melbourne, which Jim held with distinction on 2 occasions, from 1971 to 1972 and again from 1979 to 1980. Jim's commitment to the community was unwavering, and they continued to serve on council until council was dissolved in 1994 as we move towards the amalgamation of the three councils. Jim passed away on the 9th of July 2024 following a long battle with Alzheimer's disease. Vale Jim Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillors, I now seek for someone to move that Council expresses its deep regret on the passing of James Mitchell, offers its sincere condolences to their family, and places on record its appreciation for their services to the City of Port Phillip and the City of Port Melbourne back in the day. Councillor Martin to move, Councillor Sierrakoff to second. Let's take that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, we'll go back to condolence motion for Kerry McKendrick. Councillor Marcus Pearl to read.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kerry was a lifelong local of Port Melbourne and South Melbourne. She was elected to the Port Melbourne Council in 1992 and was dismissed when that fax came through at the Port Melbourne Town Hall, dismissing both Kerry, James and her colleagues by the then Premier Geoffrey Kennett in 1994 when the amalgamations happened. She's a lifelong resident of the City of Port Phillip, as I said, and she was known as a passionate supporter for her community, her family, and the causes that she held dear and fought for. And that service was far beyond her time on the City of Port Melbourne. You also need to keep in mind that Kerry was a staunchly independent representative on the Port Melbourne Council, which was quite a unicorn at the time, given the political makeup of that council. And even in the early 1990s, there were still substantial barriers for independent women to get elected to council, and she fought very hard to get elected and won the trust of a constituency which is not easy to win over today, let alone in the early 1990s. If I went through my email account in my 7.5 years on council, there's countless emails from Kerry on numerous local issues. But the key thing she did on her short time on council and thereafter was a focus on Lagoon Reserve. In fact, we wouldn't have had the lights shining at night time if it wasn't for Kerry and her husband, or her partner rather, Stephen. The condition of the Port Melbourne foreshore and South Melbourne beach, and the considerable community support that she contributed to for the South Melbourne Lifesaving Club also. The flags of the City of Port Phillip Town Halls will be flown at half-mast for Kerry on Friday and have already been flown for James at half-mast. So on behalf of the City of Port Phillip, we pay our respect. We wish Kerry and James's family all the very best, and we thank them both for their diligent service to our city.
Thank you. That's very nicely said. Councillors, I seek someone to move the motion that Council expresses its deep regret on the passing of Kerry McKendrick and offers its sincere condolences to their family and places on record their appreciation for their service to the City of Port Melbourne, Port Phillip and Port Melbourne back in the day. All right. Looking for a mover. Councillor Pearl, who would like to second that? Councillor Bond, thank you. Vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. Now we're going on to public question time and submissions. Under Council's governance rules, public questions can only be asked about items not on the agenda. Therefore, public questions will be referred to an officer for response. If you are speaking to an item on the agenda, a councillor may wish to take up your question on your behalf when the item is considered. I think we have about 20 speakers tonight, so we will be going to the 2 minutes. Most of you seem to have come here before, but if not, come on down to the microphone. Lauren, can you tell me, is the red light on yet? Okay, so the microphone's already on. So I'll call your name, come down. I need you to say your full name and your suburb for the record. Then we'll start the 2-minute timer back here. It's pretty noisy. You'll know when your 2 minutes is up. And any questions will be referred on non-items. Otherwise, councillors may take a note of it. All right, first we're speaking, call upon Michelle Windsor, submitting a question to council. Michelle, are you here? Have we had someone check in? No? All right. We might come back to that one, so if you can note who's coming in the door. Okay. I call upon Justin Halliday submitting a question to council. Now, Justin, I see that you have about 5 questions. Can you just roll through them? And then if there's various officers, I'll have them come up.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, councillors, council officers. My name is Justin Halliday from St Kilda East. I have 5 questions, unfortunately, and apologies for them. Over a year ago, in May 2023, the Balaclava toilet block was removed with a replacement date of October 2023. What is the status of the replacement toilet block and why has it been delayed? Second question, similarly, the Albert Park East toilet block burned down almost 3.5 years ago. When can the community expect the Albert Park toilets to reopen and why has it taken so long for these to be replaced and rebuilt? And what can we do in the future to prevent such delays? Third question is the Elmer Road entrance to Elmer Park, which is adjacent to the train line. This has significant heritage value, but it's currently blighted by 8 bins, 2 signs, a dumpster, and unfortunately this is where a lot of dog faeces is dumped, so it has a pretty rank smell. Has Council considered relocating these bins away from the park's heritage entrance, perhaps to the nature strip immediately above the rail underpass? Fourth question is the heritage-listed park keeper's cottage has been fenced off for more than 15 years. What is Council's plan for this significant building? And finally, Council is currently displaying a proposed design for a barrier along the south boundary of Elmer Park West. In May last year, Council approved a vegetation barrier instead of a fence, with the proposed design to be released to the community consultation early in 2024. However, we are now presented with a wire fence design that differs from the original vegetation barrier approved by Council and without any opportunity for the community to comment on the proposal. Why did the design change? Why is a fence required instead of vegetation? Who was consulted about the design change? And how does the wire fence protect and enhance the heritage of Elmer Park when other heritage parks, such as the St Kilda Blessington Gardens, have recently removed their wire fences and replaced them with designs more fitting?
That was impressive.
That'll do. We'll put a full up there.
That was impressive. All right, so questions 1 through 4. Lachlan.
Thanks, Justin, for your questions. So on the first one, the balaclava toilet block, the replacement of the public toilet has been incredibly frustrating, and I do apologise to the community that it's taken so long. Whilst there are alternative facilities within the area, the delay is unacceptable. As you said, the previous public toilet was demolished over 12 months ago. Council entered into a design and construct contract for the supply and installation of the new public toilet in a similar style to what was installed last year in Shakespeare Grove in St Kilda. The contractor who was selected to install the Coles car park toilet was selected in part because of their experience in delivering the facility in Shakespeare Grove. The public toilet has been fabricated and is awaiting installation. The lack of progress on site is due to repeated delays in the builder achieving a building permit. I'm informed that as of this afternoon, the latest set of information has been submitted to the building surveyor for review and approval. Pending the outcome of that assessment, works will start on site immediately and construction is forecast to take 3 weeks. With regards to Elmer Park East, the toilet block, as you commented, the previous toilet block in Elmer Park East was burnt down approximately 3 years ago. Works are nearly finished. It was estimated that the building would be open in late June, but this was delayed due to some final compliance issues. These have now been addressed and pending the final inspection, the public toilet should open next week. The protracted timeframe for the reconstruction has been impacted by the insurance process and supply chain issues with securing the bespoke materials for the building. Specifically, this involved Council putting out 2 tenders to market and not obtaining satisfactory responses, and a 6-month delay with the delivery of stainless steel components that had to be sourced from overseas. The timeframe to reconstruct the building is much longer than Council or the community would have wanted. As part of the finalisation of the project, as is part of Council's standard practice, a review of the project be undertaken to determine what could have been done differently and better. The lessons learnt from this project will be particularly relevant for future complex insurance-related projects. With regards to your third question about the entrance to Elmer Park off Elmer Road, I've asked Council's waste management team to see if we can relocate some of the bins away from the entrance. There are obvious benefits of having bins located with where people walk, but I'm sure something can be done in this situation given that there is some space available next door. With regards to your fourth question on the park keeper's cottage, it is a historically significant building and has been fenced off from the public for a considerable period of time. I have to take on notice your question about the longer-term plan for the building, but I can confirm that it's not on Council's work program for 24-25.
Thank you. And I'll refer to question 5 and Tony McKenzie. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, thanks for the question, Justin. I'm going to do it in 4 parts because it's kind of 4 questions. So why did the design change? Council officers produced 6 design options, which were then independently reviewed by John Patrick Landscape Architects, taking into consideration all aspects related to potential impact on the park, who ultimately provided a recommendation for what they considered the least impactful. Why is the fence required instead of vegetation? The combination of the fence and garden bed design is to maximise the effectiveness of the barrier to provide an uplift in safety for both children and dogs leaving Elmer Park West at the southern end of the park. Who was consulted about the change to the design? All design options were independently reviewed, as I said, by John Patrick Landscape Architects, taking into consideration all aspects related to potential impact on the park. JPLA ultimately provided a recommendation for what they considered to be least impactful option. Council's internal principal heritage advisor subsequently peer reviewed the report and supported their recommendation. And then the last question, the important driver for this project is one of improving safety for the community and their dogs, and Council will, through developing this design solution, will be able to achieve this outcome whilst respecting the aesthetic significance of Elmer Park.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, next I'm going to call upon Richard Whitfield, submitting a question to Council. Hello, Richard. Name, suburb, and we'll have the 2 minutes.
My name's Richard Whitfield. I live in Port Melbourne, 3207. I'm also a member of the City of Port Phillip's Older Persons Advisory Committee. I'm only here tonight just to raise awareness. I would like to say that I strongly support council initiatives to increase exercise equipment in public spaces. Anything that we can do to encourage healthy lifestyles and community socialisation is to be applauded, especially among residents who are older, less healthy and more isolated. However, please note that outdoor exercise equipment for older people is quite different to equipment for younger, fit adults. After using this kind of equipment in 3 other municipalities around Melbourne, my understanding is that for older people, the need is to focus on balance, dexterity, flexibility, cognitive skills, and not strength. So for this kind of equipment, you need to think of children's playgrounds with handrails rather than gyms. So they're quite different. Also, as important for older people, it is crucial that this kind of exercise equipment also come with training, usage training, and ways to encourage groups of older people to exercise together. Social connection is as important for the well-being of older people as the exercise itself. Older persons' exercise spaces also need shade to protect against heat stress, and they need seating so that older residents can socialise as part of their exercise regime. I note that this can also be true for exercise equipment geared for other age groups or other groups. As well as the exercise equipment, I'd also like to support the need for more and better public seating.
Thank you, Richard. Now, this was actually a moment to use for asking a question, since that's not on the agenda. What's the question that I can refer on?
I really have no question.
Can you turn it into a question to follow the governance rules?
When does Council expect to look at and incorporate older persons' exercise equipment into its parks and recreation?
Well done. Am I going Tanya or Dana? Tanya.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question. Thank you first for the exploration and the feedback and for the question, Richard. At the moment, there are no plans for installation of new outdoor fitness equipment in the next 2 to 3 years. Having said that, when we commence designing these new spaces, we will consider accessibility and equipment for use across the ages. as we review our sport and rec strategy, which is upcoming in the next 12 months, we will be identifying needs to inform future design and look at demand for activations of existing outdoor fitness equipment. So I'm really looking forward to that and taking these thoughts into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask a quick question, if that's right? Have you got any examples through the OPAC committee that you've seen of cities or areas which have done this very, very well?
Actually, with OPAC, we visited the facility in Wyndham at Hoppers Crossing, and that's a very good facility, and it seems to be quite well utilised. After seeing that, I also visited one in Victoria Park in Burundara, which is near where my sister lives, and she told me about that. And it also seems to be very well done. And thirdly, I visited one in Bayside. I forget where the name of the park where it is. Same sort of thing. In all three cases, it was interesting that you had children's playground areas, sitting areas, older persons' exercise equipment, all relatively closely co-located, which meant that there are a lot of opportunities for intergenerational interactions. And in fact, I've seen grandparents exercising with their grandchildren in these facilities in Bayside.
Thank you, and thank you for your service to our city.
Thank you, Richard. I call upon Rod Mitchell joining us online. Do we have Rod online? Speaking to item 7.2, petition for Port Phillip Council to cease the proposed Fitzroy Street seating plan. Is Rod there? Rod, can you hear us?
Thank you, Mayor.
Hello, Rod. Can you say name, suburb, and then we have 2 minutes for you.
Thank you. Rod Mitchell, St Kilda. The petition was formed at short notice based on an email that a motion for seating in Fitzroy Street would be debated tonight. 206 people responded. This petition does not seek to stop seating in Fitzroy Street indefinitely. Additional seating invites certain members of the community to park themselves there and to be a nuisance. The petition seeks to postpone seating until the antisocial behaviour is brought under control and police are comfortable with the situation. When seating is decided, Council should engage in wide community consultation and registered mail to affected businesses. 77 Fitzroy Street. Out the front of the chemist shop were 7 people, all in various states of undress, drugged and threatening. One had a bong in their hand, another an ice pipe. That was my visitation last week. Walking towards the 7-Eleven, there was more antisocial behaviour. One shop window had been smashed and the glass partition at the tram stop had also been obliterated. This antisocial behaviour is a daily occurrence. Occasionally there's another group that congregate and abuse patrons of the Pride Centre, throwing out homophobic slurs. Do any of our councillors support the space outside of 77 being used, among other things, as a platform for homophobia? Finally, I want to talk about the owners of the chemist shop next to the Pride Centre. I lived through the era of HIV/AIDS. Intolerance was alive back then. The owners of the chemist were there in the 90s, were all in the community, assisting HIV-positive, trans and sex workers. No judgment, just service. There for 34 years in business, firmly rooted in Fitzroy Street, hard-working, progressive and generous. They know more than anyone in this room about Fitzroy Street, and they don't want it. The Pride Centre doesn't want it. Business houses seem unaware of the proposal or generally against it. The general feeling amongst the community is against it. The police don't want it. The petition signatories do not want it. Please, can you just listen to the community? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call upon Hugh Van Handel joining us online, speaking to item 10.1, St Kilda Triangle. Hugh, are you online?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hugh. Yes, we can. Name, suburb, and 2 minutes, please.
I'm Hugh Van Handel. I'm the General Manager of Stokehouse. I currently reside in Fitzroy North. I just want to apologise for my lack of attendance tonight. I'm unwell last minute and decided to come home. Just to start, I just want to kick off on the Triangle car park. That's been an ongoing issue and just reaffirm our statement. Stokehouse continues to stress that a minimum of 500 car parks above or below ground are required to sustain access to local businesses, St Kilda Beach attendees, as well as the addition of Council's development of a 5,000-person arena. It's unfathomable that council forecasting on car parking does not include support provisions for St Kilda Beach, Luna Park, Stokehouse, Donovan's, Catani Gardens or other local businesses. The St Kilda Triangle modelling has only been supplied on the metrics to support the patronage of council's proposed 5,000 person arena and is therefore not accurate. Given these local attractions have a shared capacity of 10,000 to 50,000 patrons, it's fair to say that an increase in numbers to the area should only result in an increase in accessibility to the area. A 50% reduction from 418 car parks to 200 car parks is not adequate provisions. It fails to support the surrounding environmental assets and businesses, and it fails to support council's ambitious development. We're fearful that council continues to ignore a common sense approach. We're fearful that the skewed forecasting and council data employs council's current modelling, and that the prospect to cut corners and costs for the support of the development could, in fact, be the Achilles heel of the Triangle development and ensure local businesses are collateral. We could enforce another 10 to 15 years of insolvency. Insolvency is like seeing post-council development of Fitzroy Street and post-council development on Ackland Street. Stokehouse continues to request a traffic management study be complete.
Hugh.
Stokehouse continues to request a minimum of 500 car parks.
Thank you, Hugh. I'll have to stop you there. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. All right.
Thank you.
All right, I'm following my list here, and it has Rod again okay, so I have Rod Mitchell joining us online as well for speaking to item 14.1, the notice of motion for Fitzroy Street seating. I note that is quite similar to the petition, so unless there's additional information that you need to add, Rod, have you said your bit? Can you hear us, Rod?
Thank you, Mayor. The next bit will be speaking to the petition when it comes, the motion, and I will be addressing parts of the police emails, which I have 3, and I'll also be addressing comments from the Pride Centre, of which both are against any additional seating.
All right. Okay, Rod, thank you. I will allow it. Just for the record, say your name and suburb again, and then you'll have that 2 minutes. Thank you.
You want me to speak now? Is that correct?
Oh, this is the only opportunity that we're having speakers, so this is that time. Yeah, are you ready? I can go to the next person.
Yes, Rod Mitchell, St Kilda. Mayor, the proposed motion by Councillor Bond appears to either not be aligned or waters down the advice of police. Ignoring police advice sends a very poor signal and opens the council to greater legal liability. I quote an email from the 1st of July. Oppose on behalf of Victoria Police the installation of new seating infrastructure, specifically outside 77 Fitzroy Street and 121 to 123 Fitzroy Street. I quote from the 9th of July from the police. Police do not support the plan and holds concerns that the proposed increase in seating will lead to an increase in antisocial behaviour. As recently as last week, we reiterated our request that the current stools near the corner of Fitzroy and Jackson Streets be removed as soon as practicable. In the preamble to this recommendation, the proposal states that there has been received a lot of social media commentary. What it does not state is that most of that was very negative commentary. I also quote from an email from the 12th of July, from the Victorian Pride Centre. They talk about challenging behaviour from certain members of the community, threatening, verbal abuse and screaming are common occurrences within this location. The problem area where members of the community congregate, and I quote, and hurl abuse at our visitors and users at the centre, this is directly next door to our entrance, that's 77 Fitzroy Street. Some have resorted to Zoom consultations or taking their medical needs to other clinics, such as the Paran Medical Clinic in Paran. We've had to step up our on-site security and guards and patrol. As you can see, the seating to be placed in a totally inappropriate location, which would certainly invite certain members of the community to park themselves there and allow them to be closer to the entrance, offering more challenging behaviour. I would like to see this proposal abandoned and reject the installation of the seating on the grounds of compromised safety to the LGBTIQ plus community.
Right,
Mayor, I've shown you 3 emails there. I can't do any more.
Thank you. No, appreciate it. Thank you, Rod. All right, I'm going to move on to Richard Ludlow, joining us online as well. Do we have Richard? Speaking to item 14.1, the notice of motion on Fitzroy Street seating.
Hi, Heather. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Richard. Name, suburb, 2 minutes, please.
Richard Ludlow, St Kilda. I've been a long-time advocate for community safety in St Kilda. I was involved with the local ward councillor and police when the seating needed to be removed from outside 7-Eleven and Let's Save stores in 2019 due to the gatherings and bad behaviours. Some of you may say tonight that the proposed single seats are not the cause of the issue, that it's a complex matter and the gatherers will just sit on the ground anyway. Not true. Any seat will become a magnet, a honeypot for gatherers, and antisocial and criminal behaviours, followed by the trolleys and the bedding. Each seat will become a hotspot. Some of you may say we need seating for the elderly. Not true. It is not safe to walk up Fitzroy Street now, let alone sit on a seat to be harassed. The elderly will not use these seats. Many who have transferred their PO boxes from Shakespeare Grove will never come back to walk Fitzroy Street. The street is not currently in a fit state for this purpose. I'll point out one. Victoria Police have advised the council in writing that they are opposed to the seating specifically outside 77 and 121 Fitzroy Street. And yet, this motion proposes to put one seat in each location. I thought this council wanted to work with the police, not against the police. The Senior Sergeant at St Kilda has also advised us he does not want any proposed seating on Fitzroy Street. Any councillor that supports this motion is deliberately voting against the police. We have spoken with frontline staff and clients at the Victorian Pride Centre, and they are all against the seating proposal. The volunteer staff must deal with the daily threats and homophobic slurs, and I believe the VPC management have also been misled regarding the fact that the Victorian Police oppose the seating outside 77 Fitzroy Street. Any councillor that supports this motion is deliberately voting against our Pride community. And 3, we've spoken with every open trader on Fitzroy Street, walking from the Paris end to the Bronx end. And every business was against seating in front of their shop except one on the Paris end.
Thank you, Richard. Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there.
Tonight?
Richard, I'm going to have to stop you there to be fair out of the 2-minute rule. Thank you for expressing your views tonight. I call upon Frank Artuso, speaking to item 7.1, Frank's Sculptures, Danks Street Petition Response. Hello, Frank. Welcome back. If that light's still on, the microphone's ready. So name, suburb, and you have 2 minutes, please.
Frank Artuso, Albert Park. Mayor, councillors and officers, I express my gratitude for the progress on the Danks Street Biolink and Nature Strip Sculptures matter. You've acknowledged the petition of 734 signatories from all wards of the council, as well as the several dozen written submissions advocating sculptures be kept in place and continuance of this creative endeavour of repurposing hard rubbish collected within the city of Port Phillip and augmenting them into public sculptures. To city officers, thank you for your positive guidance in including these sculptures in the Danks Street Biolink and Nature Strip, and for recognising, in your own words, their social connectedness. Kate and Kevin Anderson, 50-year residents of Danks Street, succinctly captured the essence of this initiative in their written submission. I quote, "Most of all, these works make us smile, and usually that is something utterly essential, and surely that is something utterly essential in this troubled world." I have 3 questions on the recommendations. 1, what controls are you seeking to exert? 2, will you focus solely on ensuring safety? 3, what efficient consent process will affirm the continuation of these sculptures? Councillors and officers, I seek your guiding support for this unique and widely appreciated practice, which is free, positive in attributes to residents and visitors on many levels as it relates to public space strategy, public art, sustainability and neighbourhood well-being. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. Now we'll move. I call upon Rhonda Small, speaking to item 7.2, the petition for Port Phillip Council to cease the proposed Fitzroy Street seating plan. Hello, Rhonda. Is that all correct? Yeah. Hi, Rhonda.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
I see that you have two different topics, so let's just do 2 minutes on this one and then we'll go to the next one. Yes? Thank you. Okay. Name, suburb, 2 minutes.
Rhonda Small, St Kilda. I speak tonight to oppose the sentiments expressed in the petition to not allow seating to be put back in Fitzroy Street. A street without seating for the general public is a street that welcomes no one, and that is no way to improve Fitzroy Street. As a long-term resident of Port Phillip for over 40 years and a local to Fitzroy Street, living just behind the Prince Hotel for a decade now, I have a very different view of Fitzroy Street than that portrayed by the petitioners. There are lots of reasons that public seating serves locals. You might bump into someone on the street you know and want to have a seat to chat for a while. You might need to take a phone call, and again, a seat nearby makes that easier. You might be feeling tired or unwell and need a place to sit down for a while. And the idea that seating somehow enables drug crime and antisocial behaviours and loss of amenity for residents and traders just seems misguided, and a simplistic response to any of the complex problems of rough sleeping, drug taking or mental health issues. Crime rates in St Kilda are not escalating, and according to the Crime Statistics Agency of Victoria, all drug offences in St Kilda have gone from a total of 240 in the year to March 2019 down to 106 for the year to March 2024, and public order offences for the same periods have gone down from 400 to 170. While criminal offences are always disturbing when they occur, we should take care not to inflate the issue and sow unnecessary fear in the community. Far better to make Fitzroy Street more welcoming for locals and attract people back to the street with seating we can all use. And for Council to continue to work closely, as it's already doing, in partnership with local community agencies and the police, via the Port Phillip Zero project to provide a way out of homelessness and give support to people in our community with mental health and drug and alcohol issues. This petition claims to represent the views of the majority of residents, but I want to say loudly and clearly that it doesn't represent my view.
Thank you, Rhonda. All right. All right. Yep. All right. Thank you for that. Now, Rhonda Small, speaking to item 9.1, City of Port Phillip Rental Crisis Petition Response.
Thank you.
Name, suburb again.
Rhonda Small.
Also, I think, is your paper touching the microphone? Because I'm hearing this noise in the background. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll try and keep it away from the microphone. As you all know, councillors, 44% of Port Phillip households are renting in the private rental market. A third of those households are living in housing stress, paying more than 30% of their income on housing. Over the past 5 months alone, median private rents have rapidly increased across our neighbourhoods, from $45 a week in Port Melbourne, $60 a week in South Melbourne and East St Kilda, to $100 a week in West St Kilda, Middle Park and Albert Park. There are literally just a handful of affordable rental properties for people in Port Phillip on low incomes. So a rental crisis is very real in our city. Yet the recommendations in the petition response, which you will consider tonight, do not provide any comfort to the members of our community in rental stress, or to the 40 or so residents who met to discuss the crisis in November last year and presented the resolution from that meeting via this petition. We know that Council cannot single-handedly solve the rental crisis. Council could not solve the crisis for many traders during the pandemic either, but it did provide extra support and still does in the 24-25 budget, with $650,000 for continued economic recovery. In the last financial year, Council also provided rate relief to ratepayers by not going to the rate cap in recognition of the cost of living crisis. So why can Council not find anything it can do usefully to provide extra help to renters? As you know, other councillors do, providing additional emergency funds on top of state government rental relief programs to support local renters who most need it. Why can't we? Yes, Council is active in providing programs to reduce homeless, Port Zero, which is really commendable, but that program's not focused on support for those in housing stress due to high rents, nor does it assist tenants with problems like substandard accommodation or unreasonable rent increases or legal advice. Yet we read here that funding for a dedicated tenancy lawyer, as requested by Southside Justice, was not supported in the 24-25 budget. I can only ask why renters are always forgotten. The $500,000 Council allocated for CCTV cameras could have gone a long way in supporting them.
Thank you for coming tonight. I now call upon Alex Darton, speaking to item 9.1, the City Port Phillip Rental Crisis Petition Response. Hello, Alex. Name, suburb, 2 minutes.
My name's Alex Darton and Elwood. Mayor, councillors, officers. I'll be speaking to the petition put in from the Renters Forum. I helped set up the Renters Forum. And the response was disappointing, to say the least. We all acknowledge there's a crisis, and the response to the petition does not show any care to help alleviate this crisis. I will speak mainly, after Rhonda spoke on other points, mainly on point 2, which was the website, which I asked for a while ago to be done. And I will use my personal example as a way of describing it. Now, I don't fit into the category of needing housing. I am in rental stress as a majority. But when it comes to any help understanding the legislation, understanding what's going on, there is really not much help. Tenants Victoria, after the start of the year, stopped taking new cases until only a few weeks ago because they were swamped. Southside Justice, you need to be in a lower socioeconomical position to, utilise them, if at all, if they can be utilised. And so there's a real gap between any useful knowledge and help. And I recently got another rental increase from the same real estate agents. And within the rental increase, they they made it invalid in 4 different separate ways. And they also threatened us within the same email. We responded with pointing out what they've done, and they came back with another threat. Now, all you can do is take in a VCAT. I can handle real estate agents to some degree, and we're in a position that we can maybe pay some of this, this market value, if that is a thing, rental increase. But that's it. And I can deal with this. Most other people can't. It's really, really, really difficult, and there is no help. Now, if we all agree that there's a rental crisis, we all agree that all tiers of government have got to do more, we need to step up and do a bit more. And this petition was very basic, and there was nothing in it. So I appreciate the officers giving it a go, but there's more information in the rebuttal of this than there is on the website for renters.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good feedback. All right. I call upon Mary Stewart, speaking to item 10.1, the St Kilda Triangle. Hello, Mary. Name, suburb, 2 minutes, please.
My name is Mary Stewart. I live in St Kilda. I work in St Kilda. I employ in St Kilda. I'm also on the board of the St Kilda Tourism Association. I speak in support of option 3, that the council pause all St Kilda Triangle live music venue work until after the coming council elections. I also support and adopt the submissions put by Hugh Van Handel, specifically the arguments that he put in terms of the need to increase the number of car parks available in the context of bringing additional people into St Kilda. And whilst the venue for 5,000 people is not something that I necessarily oppose, I oppose it if it means that there is not sufficient parking to cater for the additional people who are being brought to St Kilda and also the existing people who come to venues. In terms of the report, the report is based on an attachment relating to market survey which is not accessible, which is locked, which is said to be commercial in confidence. It is not transparent, therefore, to anybody assessing the report if you do not have access to what sits behind the recommendations and the conclusions. And even if there is some information in that report that, or in the attachment, that the council feels needs to be redacted, then do that and go some distance towards being transparent in the way in which the council considers matters of significance to the community.
Thank you very much, Mary. Sorry, tongue-tied there.
Could I ask a quick question?
Oh, yeah, stay there, Mary. Go ahead, Councillor Pearl.
You are St Kilda, Mary, as you said in your
I'm sorry?
you're the St Kilda expert. You are St Kilda, right? You know this place very, very well. it's not your job to have one, but I'm interested to know, what is your vision for the triangle? What do you think council should do there? You're one of the key stakeholders. We've been trying to sort this out for 10 years. What do you think we should do with the triangle?
Hope you're ready for that.
The triangle is an eyesore. It provides a significant public amenity. And that public amenity is not something that is the council's to trade, in my opinion. Having said that, I think that there needs to be, in the ideal world, underground parking provided. Means you've got to deal with the soil contamination. If you don't deal with the soil contamination and you build anything on it, you're going to give a problem you're just going to kick that problem down the track. I support the establishment of a cultural venue, and in terms of having a live music venue next door to a live music venue, I find that to be counterintuitive. And I don't think that in this current environment the council has got any hope of getting support in terms of funds from the Victorian State Government. And you're probably not going to be in that position for another 4 or 5 years. And I don't think that continuing, and I say that, not speaking outside of school, but I've been told that by at least 3 or 4 ministers personally, that there is no money for this or a whole range of other things. If they're going to spend money, they'll put it into the hospitals or the schools. And there's significant wind back in terms of funding available for a number of cultural institutions in the state at the moment.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go next to Nick Bailey. Hello, Nick. Come on down. You're speaking to 13.3, the South Melbourne Town Hall, ANAM's schematic design.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors and officers. My name's Nick Bailey, General Manager of the Australian National Academy of Music, and I live in Northcote. So I just would like to invite councillors to accept the recommendations of officers approving the schematic design for the refurbishment and renewal of the South Melbourne Town Hall as proposed by Peter Elliott Architects, and confirming that the Joint Project Control Group, the JPCG, is the best forum to resolve any issues that may arise from time to time, as they inevitably will and have done. I believe that Peter Elliott's plans meet the publicly stated objectives of our project and deal sensitively and creatively with the challenges inevitably involved in bringing a contemporary functionality and relevance to a heritage building such as this. I do not think that we could be working with better professionals in the development of these plans. They're a firm of immense experience in working in historic buildings. They've, of course, done the Parliament House in Spring Street, and they've assembled an outstanding team of sub-consultants, including engineering, services, access, theatre, energy, acoustics, First Nations, and most importantly in Bryce Horwath, heritage consultants. With a project of this scale and complexity, as more of the building's challenges reveal themselves, as they continue to do, we're all inevitably thrown curveballs. I believe that we do have in the JPCG a robust and professional forum for dealing with these challenges and changes in the context of the overall project goals. So we're looking forward to moving to the next detailed design phase of this project. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick. I call upon Una Steele, speaking to item 14.1, the notice of motion for Fitzroy Street seating. Hello, Una.
I've got some handouts for councillors.
Over to the governance team, please, and they can hand them out. Or they'll come
I'd like to read them before you vote. That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, name, suburb, and your 2 minutes.
Una Steele, St Kilda East. In a perfect world, we would all love to smell the roses and sit and pass the time of day. Sadly, that is not the case in Fitzroy Street. Everybody knows the decline of that area has progressed rapidly. Where has the street cleaning, graffiti removal and police presence disappeared to? Instead, we have a motion raised from a councillor who, ironically in 2019, had been against this said motion. Everything that councillor...
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
If you can pause, I'll do point of order.
53 Part E, that's an error of fact.
Sorry?
Sorry, if you just
53 Part E under our governance rules.
What is the error
Your
of fact?
statement is an error of fact.
What is the error of fact?
In 2019, I was not against seating on Fitzroy Street.
Okay.
I stated very, very clearly we removed seats at the request of the police. That's not me being
Councillor
against
Bond,
seating.
if you can stop, please. I wasn't on council in 2019, but we've had someone who was. Correct that. So if you could keep going, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's actually online, so if you want me to send it.
All right, we're not going to go back and forth if you'd like
Point of
to
order,
do
Madam Mayor, that's once again factually incorrect. I made it very clear in that interview we removed seating at the request of the police.
Okay.
It's the exact statement I made.
I'd ask both of you to pause, please.
Okay. Can I continue?
In a second. Just wait, please.
Right.
Let's not go back and forth. I understand you're doing it through a point of order. You've had the error fact corrected by the councillor. If you could move past it and keep going, please.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so nothing has changed. Council are putting the cart before the horse. They need to spend money on the infrastructure already there. But no, chairs are already purchased, yet again without community or trader consultation. Can you really imagine elderly people, young mums with kids, wishing to sit outside a pharmacy? To sit alongside street people with a high chance of being abused or even injured? We suggest you put the chairs elsewhere. Frankston City Centre was a similar situation to St Kilda, but has turned the area around. They have a rapid response team that works alongside the police and specifically target antisocial behaviour. Our police have stated that they are against the idea as it would make their job that much harder. So council needs to step up. 1, use local laws and police, even a pop-up shop as mentioned previously. 2, get regular cleaning arranged and a quick response of graffiti removal. 3, work with other agencies to rehome or rehab street people. 4, encourage new traders in the empty shops, and if this doesn't work in the near future, arrange for shop windows to be prettified, like other cities around the world. 5, start revitalising the area to encourage more people to return. But bike hoops are a great idea.
Thank you, Una.
Okay.
Right, next, Adrian King. Come on down. Speaking item 14.1, the notice of motion as well for Fitzroy Street sitting. Hello, Adrian.
Hi.
Name, suburb, 2 minutes, please.
Okie dokie. Adrian King, Fitzroy Street seating. I live in Middle Park but frequent St Kilda daily. There is no healthy St Kilda without a healthy Fitzroy Street. St Kilda is at the centre of our municipality. There is no healthy City of Port Phillip without a healthy St Kilda. Near-term police resource is finite. St Kilda's problem is Middle Park's problem. It is Elwood's problem. It is South Melbourne's problem. The challenge requires a collaborative, coordinated, sustained approach. It requires a joint ownership of the issue. Council, police, support agencies and the community. It is why I'm here tonight. The challenge calls for robust due process. As a community, we are at a crisis point. Lives are at risk. The facts. Fitzroy Street Business Association is 100% funded by council grants. 2 to 3 council officers attend each meeting.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
If you can pause real quick, Adrian, just pause. Point of order, what is the point of order?
53 Part E, again, an error of fact. The Fitzroy Street Business Association is funded by a special rate, not council grants.
That is true. It's by the traders. They pay for it, not council grant.
I have access to their accounts and it states clearly City of Port Phillip grants in their own accounts.
Point of order, Matt.
Okay, point of order.
Just to clarify, you've made a ruling on that previous point of order and that every party to the meeting should abide by it.
Thank you. Just pause real quick, Adrian. So I will ask a follow-up question after this, but at this point, the information that I believe is correct that Councillor Bond said, but I will ask a question about that after, or you can give that. But if you could keep going, please, then we can get through this.
11th of June, email council officer to a local resident, quote, we have been working collaboratively with St Kilda Police. Contrast this with 1st of July, police email to residents, including myself. We do not support the installation of any additional seating on Fitzroy Street.
4th of July, in the evening, following a meeting with, I think it's Inspector Colo, quote, police email to myself and others, Victoria Police are not supportive of the proposed additional seating installation along Fitzroy Street. We are of the opinion that the proposal would result in additional public order and amenity concerns. Inspector Colo has provided the feedback to the City of Port Phillip already. I close with the following. Closure of Pride Car Park. The committee voted in favour of closing the car park for safety and security concerns. Quote, David Blakely, Fitzroy Street Association, 21st of May, 2024.
Thank you. I'll have to stop you there. Thank you very much, Adrian. I do have a question about the police advice, but I'll leave it because we've had different advice. I'll leave that to the actual item. Maybe we can address it at the petition, but I think that a lot of people are quoting these emails that I just want to call that out right now. Okay, I'm going to my blue forms. Oh, sorry. Did I know Miss Michelle Windsor entering the room? No, Michelle. If you're online, Michelle, sorry, we don't have you. Did anybody else register to speak other than the blue forms? Otherwise, I'm going with the blue forms now. Okay. Jason Petch or Gabrielle Chamberlain? Come on down. Gabrielle? Hey, Gabrielle. I see you're speaking to 7.2, yes. The Fitzroy Street petition. Name, suburb, 2 minutes, please.
Gabrielle Chamberlain, Fitzroy, resident, Fitzroy Street, trader. Thank you for hearing us tonight. My husband and I started a restaurant called Blue Oyster in November 2020. We were so upbeat about opening in the iconic street in St Kilda. We have a 5-star rating and one of the best rated seafood restaurants in Victoria. However, since we have opened, we've found we have been placed with a lot of dismay. We have Jason experienced people pulling knives on him, myself being punched in the face. We have constant theft within the street. We have vandalism in the street. We have spitting. We have people abusing our customers. We have a little saying, it's Fitzroy Street, you get dinner and a show. And unfortunately, when you're explaining this to people from overseas, it is not the way we want to view Fitzroy Street and our St Kilda where we live. Between the tobacco shop and 7-Eleven, this has now been renamed Junkie Lane or Junkie Avenue. That aside, today we're here to discuss the seats. We have one comment to make. We don't want to add fuel to the fire, which is already burning out of control in Fitzroy Street. Till last Saturday, we had no idea that these were being proposed. The notion to add beds, and yes, we do mean beds and more congregation places for undesirables within our street. To litter the streets, the drug trafficking, the actual abuse of elderly, children, parents and people walking down the street. We are extremely against this. To conclude, all we want is Fitzroy Street to succeed. There's better places to spend money. Let's put lighting back there. Let's take the people who own those empty streets.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Did you take that form? Yeah. Okay, next I have David Williams speaking to 14.1, the notice of motion. Hello, David. Name, suburb, 2 minutes, please.
David Williams, St Kilda. I'm a parent of primary-aged children. I'm also a member of school council at St Kilda Park Primary. A year ago, 1,500 of our community petitioned against siting a public toilet in front of our school on Fitzroy Street. The reason for doing that was because we were concerned about the antisocial behaviours that we thought would be attracted by that facility. And that's, despite our shared goal for community amenity, this is based on the lived experience of our school community traversing Fitzroy Street. We live here, our kids go to school here, we know what happens, we know what Fitzroy Street looks like currently. I'm speaking tonight on obviously the furniture seating idea on Fitzroy Street, and I would say that our school community would have the same concerns, that this will only be a focal point for more of the ongoing antisocial behaviours that we see within Fitzroy Street. Sadly, this issue is still ongoing. We've had members of our community assaulted in Fitzroy Street. I would encourage councillors, acknowledging that there's a number of major developments happening at the south end where we currently have empty shops. We would all hope that that will help the street. Why would we put seating in there at this time? Perhaps it might make more sense to wait for those developments to happen. That will attract the foot traffic that we would like to think will help the street. But I can tell you at the moment, many in our community simply avoid Fitzroy Street. If they're walking their kids to school, they'll choose other routes. And this is based on not just perceptions of safety, this is the lived experience that we have. So I'd urge councillors perhaps to defer this idea until those developments transpire.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Running out of space. Okay. Now I have Russell Frenchman come down, please, speaking to 14.1, the notice of motion. Okay. Hello, Russell. Name, suburb, 2 minutes, please.
Good evening. Yes, Russell Fradgman, St Kilda. Probably represent a lifetime of St Kilda. In fact, my father was brought up in St Kilda, went to school in St Kilda. So many, many, many years, over 30 years trading as local pharmacy in St Kilda. But seriously, over the 30 plus years, we've seen councils come and councils go. We've seen seating come and seating go. But right now we're at an all-time low in terms of street behaviour. We witness daily serious disputes, assaults, windows broken, cars damaged, people harassed, misery. If there were seats placed along Fitzroy Street, more than there are now, would I ever envisage recommending to an elderly person? You would have to be out of your brain. For people to argue that point, they have no experience on the street level. We service many people who have psychiatric vulnerabilities. They come from Alfred Hospital, psychiatric referrals. They are petrified of the behaviour of some of the street people. They avoid them like the plague. They come in and they are traumatised. But this council seems to show no transparency. In fact, I would call it deceptive behaviour. To offer in many different times, yes, the police support it, yet we have the local inspector, the senior sergeants, they're all against placing more seating along Fitzroy Street. In fact, they're for withdrawing seating along Fitzroy Street. It's just not the right time. To hear that you've consulted with...
I'm sorry, the 2 minutes does go fast, but thank you. I have Charlotte up next. Charlotte, if you could come down, please. Charlotte, I have 2 blue forms for you, but I think it's because you have 2 questions or 2 bits. So let's just roll through them, please.
Russell forgot to say we only had 3 days and it's school holidays, but we've got another 22 letters of opposition to the proposal.
Thank you.
In just 3 days, and so much for the wide consultation.
Thank you.
That's from other traders.
Understood. Thank you, Charlotte. Let's start your time. So name, suburb, and 2 minutes, please.
Charlotte Fradgman, St Kilda. Sorry, I wasn't...
It's all right. Take a moment. We'll start it when you start.
Yep. So, question, I guess it's been canvassed. Why would City of Port Phillip ignore the real and actual safety and crime issues rampant on Fitzroy Street and go against written advice and recommendations from Victoria Police, which opposes any new seating in Fitzroy Street under the current prevailing conditions and circumstances? It is important to say we have traded opposite the notorious Gatwick Hotel. I wasn't scared, frightened, anything once in my life. It took 32 years. We now have 4 personal safety intervention orders. We've both been assaulted within the pharmacy. This has only happened in the last 2 years. These are the conditions we're talking about now. It is not the appropriate time. Okay? Try dealing with that on a daily basis. Okay, so that was question number 1. Question number 2. There is definite opposition and outcry. I would contend that there has been adequate consultation. In fact, the seats have been relocated a couple of times and the configuration of the seats has been moved and changed. There should have been proper consultation every time. I was told an email was sent out. Asked the 20 or so traders we spoke to, no one even had heard about seating or knew. That is not proper consultation. When you do a planning thing, you send an Australia Post letter out to the landlord, owner, the tenant, blah, blah. None of that happened. Why wouldn't you defer this for 12 months to see if conditions improve and the new council will be in?
Thank you, Charlotte. A councillor may take up those questions at the item. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm pretty sure that's everybody. The blue forms up through. Yep, everyone's sorted. Okay. Let's move back into the agenda. And next we have councillor question time. Councillors, do you have any questions of public nature that you'd like to ask officers at this moment? Councillor Pearl?
Yes, I have 2. First one, I assume, will be taken on notice. Officers might be aware of a billboard that's located on private property on the corner of York Street and Montague Street, South Melbourne, which is adjacent to the Sol Green Reserve. Can officers please take this question and report back if these billboards have valid permits, why the trees have not been replanted in front of these billboards that appear to be on private property, and is there any way council can get these billboards removed?
Thank you. Do you know the location he's talking about? So it's where York and City Road come in? Montague? Okay, so take it on notice? All right, thank you. Okay, Councillor Pearl's second question.
No problem. Can officers please provide an update on the development/building permits at 1 to 7 Waterfront Place? Specifically, can you update councillors on the development and clean-up of the site? When was the last time council engaged with the owner/developer regarding the appalling state of the site?
Is someone ready to take that question tonight? Thank you, Nellie.
Through you, Mayor. Council is currently assessing an amendment application which seeks several changes to the development that was approved by the planning permit for 90 in 2020. The changes sought in the amendment application are confined to internal changes to apartments, changes to the other land uses, and minor external changes to colonnades and the material and finishes. The amendment application is currently waiting for a response to a further information request, and the applicant is required to respond by the 29th of July this year. The planning permit requires the development to start by the 3rd of August 2026, and officers have been informed that the land has recently been sold and that settlement will occur soon. At this stage, we do not have the details of the new owner. However, we will work with them to improve the appearance of the land.
Thank you.
Just to follow up,
can I just take a moment real quick, if you just wait? People in the gallery, can you please cease having conversations? You're welcome to go out into the hallway if you'd like, but we need to have everybody quiet, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, go ahead, Councillor Pearl.
My second part of the question was, when was the last time council officers engaged with the owner regarding the appalling state of the site? So what are we doing to get the site cleaned up, regardless of change of ownership? They have an obligation to make sure it's safe and it should be also have an obligation to make sure it's not unsightly. So when was the last time we actually sat and spoke to them about the appalling condition of the site?
I'll have to take the exact date on notice, but the land is being used by another building taking place close by, so there's some activity happening on the site from that construction site, but I'll take it on notice about the exact date of communication with the owner.
Thank you. Any further questions from councillors of general nature? Councillor Sirikoff.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask Council what the or is there any update on the progress of supermarkets and their shopping trolleys with the installation of perimeter constraint systems so that shopping trolleys are not spread throughout the city?
Nellie. Thank you, Nellie.
Through you, Mayor. The current local law, which came into effect on the 1st of August 2023, required that by the 1st of September this year, premises with 30 or more shopping trolleys for use by customers must have installed a device that constrains the shopping trolley to the perimeter of the premises. From the 1st of September this year, once a trolley is found outside the perimeter, the owner of the trolley will be notified and given a reasonable time to recover the trolley unless the shopping trolley is a danger. Penalty fees of up to $489 can be applied for the collection of impounded shopping trolleys, and any trolley not collected can be disposed of after 14 days. We have been informed that the third party supplying the devices are in discussion with Coles and Woolworths to implement the locks prior to 1 September this year. Local laws will continue to monitor and take action when needed.
Can I ask a follow-up on that one? I report a lot of trolleys through Snaps and Solve, and it always says it's come through from Woolworths or Coles, whoever owns the trolley I reported. Do we get that data to know that or is it kind of missing us, bypassing us for that?
Through you, Mayor, my understanding it goes to a trolley tracker company that collects the trolleys and then returns them to the owners. I'll take it on notice if we get any data on that.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mayor, if I may add to it, I've been alerted in the past couple of weeks that we have seen more trolleys out and about around Fitzroy Street and other places. I've asked the team to do a sweep and to enforce strongly in the interim.
Thank you. Any last questions of general nature? No, we'll move on then. Sealing schedule. Councillors, we have no items for sealing on tonight's agenda, so we're on to petitions and joint letters. Councillors, we have 2 petitions on tonight's agenda. The first one is 7.1, Frank's Sculptures, petition response. Do councillors have any questions of the officers in relation to this item? Councillor Pearl?
Yes, please. The sculptures in the adjacent streets outside the zone that's talked about in the recommendation here this evening. So I drove past today. There's quite a few sculptures still on Page Street, in Ashworth Street, and in and around Mill Street, which is outside the area talked about here. What will be happening with those sculptures and when?
Nellie?
Through you, Mayor, the local laws officers and open space staff will be meeting on site to assess and look at the sculptures included on Danks Street. Those other locations can be looked at that time as well.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah. And who will be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the sculptures 5 or 6 years from now, say?
Through you, Mayor. So my understanding is that through the Legacy Garden under the Nature Strip guidelines and the BioLink project that's progressing through open space, those sculptures will be included in the BioLink project and within the scope of that project, whereas the Nature Strip, as required by those guidelines, the upkeep would be required by the owners or whoever put those out there, but in discussion with local laws to ensure that that is safe to be placed on public land.
I have a question. So when one statue deteriorates and needs to be removed, does Legacy cover another one coming to replace it, or is it they phase out?
Through you, Mayor, as outlined in the officer recommendation, we would request a conversation with local laws before any changes or additions are made to any sculptures.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further questions? Otherwise, we have an officer's recommendation. Would someone like to move this or something else? Councillor Pearl? Was that a hand, Councillor Baxter? Councillor Baxter, second. Okay, Councillor Pearl, would you like to speak to it?
I'll reserve, yep.
Okay. Councillor Baxter?
I'd just say that I'm really glad we were able to come to a resolution here that seems to work on a number of levels. Well done to the officers.
Thank you. Any other councillors want to speak to it? Councillor Sirikoff?
Yeah, I'm also pleased that these sculptures will remain along Danks Street between Kerford Road and Mill Street. I do think that they do add, a bit of nice atmosphere to that median strip, and I'm glad it's going to be included in the design of the Danks Street BioLink project. So I think this is a really good outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any last comments from councillors? Otherwise, for closing, Councillor Pearl?
No need to.
No need? Okay. All right, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, on to 7.2, this petition for Port Phillip Council to cease the proposed Fitzroy Street seating plan. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in regards to the item? I have a few. Oh, sorry. I'll point everybody to the screen where there's an officer's alt rec. So I'll read it out on the second item. Maybe you stop scrolling. Thanks. Adding that after receives and notes a petition and provides a response at a future council meeting, pending the outcome of the notice of motion on the same matter to be considered at this meeting. Thank you. That just helps with the process. Thank you. So, councillors, do you have any questions of the officers? If not, I might start. There were references from the community about the police advice received. What is the latest, and from who was that advice received? Brian, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, at a meeting this afternoon with the local area commander, Brett Cole, that I attended. There was a discussion around the apparently competing police advice, one saying that there was no approval for the seating, and the other, which is included in the information provided to councillors, which provided that there was support for seating other than two nominated locations. I can confirm that at the meeting, Brett Cole, the local area commander, confirmed that the official police, confirmed that the official police position was as set out in the documentation provided to councillors and included in the report, namely that police supported seating other than the two locations identified in the letter from the local area commander.
Okay, I note I was at the same meeting. I confirm that's the same thing. Can you, though, explain the explanation for what was said in those emails that people have referenced, that he gave his advice, like the emails that we've received through email, the advice received through email, what was his explanation for why it's different?
Thank you, Mayor. And I think it was a long discussion. My recollection at the end was that what the local area commander was saying was that the written advice that he's given, that's included, was the advice. The other position was, I think he said, was at a higher level, and that in his view there wasn't an inconsistency.
Thank you. Hey, you know what? He's not wrong. I was in the same meeting. I was just asking the question so you could hear it as well. I asked the inspector to come tonight and say it out of his own mouth, but he wasn't willing to. But I promise you, hand on heart, sign a Bible, sign anything, that is what was said in this meeting by the senior person.
Paris end, not the Bronx end, please.
All right. Sorry. Okay, well, that is really disappointing here, but I have to ask the gallery not to interject. Questions. The next question is about community engagement. Is there a policy, or how would we normally go about informing community engagement on an item like this? Say it was a bin, a seat, etc., on a high street.
Through you, Mayor, depending on the size of the initiative proposed, where there is a trader association or a business association, we usually do collaborate with them on the first instance, as they are the representative body for all traders on the street. All traders on the street are engaged in the special rate and have the voting right in the trader association. We do also, however, always email all businesses on our email database. We have business newsletters that go out monthly. We do regular walks of the street inviting traders to be on that email database. So we do acknowledge that not all traders are always aware of everything that we do, but we do undertake best endeavours to ensure that they are.
Okay. Next question. The seat design in... Oh, sorry, never mind. Well, I'm going to ask it now. I think it's relevant to both, okay? The seat design that people are petitioning against, what is being proposed? What is the design of the seat?
Through you, Mayor, the seats are featured in the notice of motion online so people can see exactly what they're envisaged to look like. They are single seats with armrests, stainless steel, very similar to what is available in the City of Melbourne. They were selected as part of a CEPTED report, which is crime prevention through environmental design. So they are not designed for people to linger for long periods of time and in terms of comfort, and they're also not able to be sat on by more than one person at a time.
Okay. And a clarification of that image. I could see one armrest. There's definitely two?
Two armrests,
okay.
Correct.
All right. Hold on, guys. Works on Fitzroy Street. Okay, I'm just looking at my questions. Okay. Sorry, guys. I was looking at my notes. It's hard to chair and try to be. We actually can't take questions at this moment. I appreciate that you have more to say, but we've finished public question time. All right. Councillors, does anybody else have questions this time of the petition? No. All right. I note that this petition only has, as written up here, and this will be spoken about later on. Councillors, you can choose to speak now, but it may be better at the later part, okay, for getting through the meeting. Who would like to move? Sorry? Oh. Okay. Okay, this was handed to us, so we're going to circulate it? Okay. All right, we'll do that. Thank you. All right, councillors, you have the officers, what are we calling it, alt motion? Right there, up there with the revision. If someone would like to move this, Councillor Pearl and Councillor Sirikoff to second. Thank you. Councillor Pearl, would you like to speak to it?
This is essentially procedural because we've got Councillor Bond's motion here this evening, which will go into a lot more detail. So let's move this and get on with business.
Thank you. Councillor Sirikoff?
Yeah, I'm of the same mind that I think it's really good to accept the petition and to show that we're actually listening to the residents and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors speaking to this yet? No? We'll wait till later? Okay. Let's take that to the vote. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Now we're going to move into presentation of reports. The first one is 8.1, the CEO report issue 108 for May. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to this report? No? Looking for someone to move this? Yeah, Councillor Martin to move. Thank you. And Councillor Pearl to second. Councillor Martin, would you like to speak to it?
Always full of lots of information. I won't repeat what I normally say. Can I just highlight two things that are there? Our bin collection is finally now almost 50% below the benchmark for successful bin collection. It's been a very long year, but we've finally got this. That's excellent news. And secondly, for those who play sport at the Murphy Reserve, great that the baseball pitch lighting has now been completed. So it's lots and lots of good news in the CEO report.
Excellent. Councillor Sirikoff? No, Pearl, sorry, got it wrong. Okay, all right. I'll just add, I completely agree with that. It's an excellent report. Appreciate it. Let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. All right, on to 9.1, City of Port Phillip rental crisis petition response. Any questions of the officer in relation to this report? Councillor Crawford?
By accepting or voting the officer's recommendation, this does not preclude councillors bringing forth other opportunities at the quarterly review to perhaps implement any of these. It was just if we collectively agree to the officer's response, there's still opportunity for councillors in this term to perhaps bring another one to the table.
Through you, Mayor, I don't see a reason why not.
I'll add a question. On the second item about the dedicated page website, without giving me a number, I imagine, is there an expense, a cost to adding to the website to have more information to updo it? Would you need us to change something or give budget to it in order to change, enhance it?
No, we can work with putting more relevant information on it if there's a gap.
Okay, so no further direction required? No. Okay, great, thank you. All right, councillors, any other questions? Otherwise, we have the officer's recommendation. Would someone like to move this or something else? Councillor Pearl, thank you for being quick on the hands. I'll second it without anybody else. Councillor Pearl, would you like to speak to it? Okay, I'll add, I hear the disappointment, I do, and I think that at least we can get a little bit of improvement on that. Keep trying at quarterly budget reviews. There's an election coming up, you know, there's stuff that could be moving on this topic. So, yeah, thanks for bringing the petition. Anybody else want to speak to it? Councillor Baxter?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I'll be voting against accepting this recommendation. I think that we've really missed an opportunity here to come up with or acknowledge some innovative ways to try and work with our community here who are really suffering due to this housing crisis and this affordability crisis that we're in. I think it was Rhonda Small that talked about some of the things that we do seem to have money for, and I totally understand. There's always a reason why you can say we don't have money for this or it's not our place to fund this, but we need to also, as with everything, when we go through a budget process, you also balance that up against some of the things that we do seem to have money for, and we are able to support sections of our community through difficulty in lots of different ways, and we do that. But here we have a cohort of people. It's a really, really large cohort of people. And I understand it's a scarily large cohort of people who need assistance, and it doesn't need to necessarily be direct monetary assistance, but they need assistance from their local council where state and federal governments are not providing that at the moment. And indeed, state and federal levels of government probably have other levers that they should be pulling to deal with that crisis anyway, but they're not. So I think that this recommendation here is it's a big bag of nothing, and I don't think that it's going to do a jot to assist the pretty much half of our community, or a little bit more than half, that are renters, and many of whom are experiencing that rental stress. So I can't support this motion, and I'll, the mayor pointed out that there is an election later on. This is a deeply political issue. Take a political action, I suppose.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are many stresses across our community at the moment: mortgage stress, cost of living stress, energy stress. So it's a particularly difficult time for many people in our community. Council, as the paper outlines, does a significant and possibly more than many other councils in terms of supporting homelessness, social housing and many other factors where we try to alleviate some of the challenges in our community. Just because state and federal governments may have advocated their responsibilities or not providing adequate resources for renters is not a reason for council to suddenly start filling that gap. We do not have the funding and the resources on the scale that those two levels of government have, and they should be held accountable to provide adequate resources for the issues that that level of government are responsible for. I'm supportive of the motion to an extent. Where I have concerns is the level of advocacy that's mentioned here. Now, on one hand, advocacy seems like a good idea, and it's not necessarily a bad idea. But where we're advocating for things that belong in the state government's responsibilities, we have a lot of things we need to advocate for in local government, and areas such as where we need funding to help us deliver the areas that we're responsible for our communities. Things like we just talked about, the St Kilda Triangle, where we want to advocate to get funding for a project like that. There's many other areas for projects that we need to bring to the community for sporting events, facilities, and lots of other things that we advocate for to help us, and we use our council resources and our political capital, if you want to call it that, with the relevant governments to help us deliver a better community for our sites. So to extend our advocacy to areas that are well and truly within the state government's realm, I think is pushing council's resources. However, overall, the balance of the motion, I will support. Thank you.
Thank you. I need to remind the gallery again to please stop the side chats. I can hear the whispering, but it's also very distracting. If you need to have a conversation, you're more than welcome to go outside. And I need you to follow direction from the chair, please. All right. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Niago, would you like to go next?
Thank you. I don't support this response. I think we are in probably the worst housing crisis our country has ever seen. It's on parallel with our climate crisis. This response, I think, is manifestly inadequate, and I urge my colleagues to not support this tonight and find a way to do more.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, is that a hand?
I'm not critical of our officers, as a couple of my colleagues have been. However, I'm disappointed where this motion has ended up. But unfortunately, the 9 of us sitting around the table have set the council up in a position where the officers have had their hands tied, and we've endorsed a budget which has no long-term commitment to additional support for social housing, has produced a balanced budget where there's very little additional funding which can be put for anywhere in the next 12 months towards anything that's going to address housing crisis, rental issues and so on. So our officers have had their hands tied behind their back, so I'm reluctant to be critical of them in coming up. There are some good things here. Where I see in the dot points where we're talking about advocacy, I hope that for the remainder of this council, and that the next council is particularly strong in advocating in those areas. It's been mentioned that council has an opportunity to put more money into new programs if there's money available through our quarterly review process. And I'd be hoping that the next council will look very, very strongly at the best bang for our buck in terms of how we can best support housing and homelessness in the city of Port Phillip. And whether that's through rental subsidies, whether that's providing additional support for social housing, whether it's a combination of both, I'll leave that to the next council to decide. But I certainly hope that the next council does take that on very, very seriously. I'm not sure what happens if I don't support this motion, because it has no material change to what council is currently doing. I'm thinking perhaps at the moment that even though it has not very many teeth, we the councillors are the ones that have removed most of the teeth that could have been put in there, and that the best thing is, regardless of whether this motion's carried or lost, that the next council looks very, very seriously at all the issues involved in housing and homelessness, as I said earlier. It's not just support for renters, it's support for social housing in general, it's support for rough sleepers, all the things that I hope many of us hold dear. So I'll sit here and try and work out what I do with this motion, but I certainly hope that the next council is a very, very, very strong advocate for a whole raft of issues which support issues surrounding housing and homelessness. And if that means that additional money needs to be put into those programs at the expense of other programs the council currently does, then so be it.
I have a clarifying question. If this were to fail, given that some people are looking at maybe not voting for it, does anything need to be changed? Is there any, if it just failed, would it just come back at another time? Just lapse. Nothing happens. Okay. Noted. Thank you. All right. Any other councillors speaking to it? Councillor Crawford?
You know what? St Kilda City was based on looking after people who were homeless and down and needy. Albert Jacka, a recipient of the Victoria Cross, that's what he used to do when he came back from the war. It is in the heart and soul of St Kilda to care for those most needy. And I have to say, I think a large music venue pales in comparison to making sure people in our local community have a home. There is no equivalence. And the idea that we can't advocate for free as business as usual to keep people in their homes and help them in the most difficult time is actually appalling. So I'm not going to be supportive of this motion because it does nothing. It does not address the issues. But to even the equivalence, to even try and draw an equivalence to that, I'm just sorry, I'm appalled. We say we're here for the community. Well, I tell you what, increasing food money for the various organisations, as we know people are going hungry, that is something we've been doing for the last 4 years because we know how desperate it is out there. And then to say, that we're going to wipe our hands of anything to do with renters, but all those people in mortgage stress will help them but not the others, is just, I'm sorry, I'm appalled. So I won't be voting for this. I think the petition raises some of the innovative things we should be looking to do, but to even draw equivalence, I'm appalled.
Thank you. All right, any further councillors speaking? I think most have. Councillor Pearl, would you like to close?
Sure, I didn't really expect to hear what I just heard tonight. Because what I heard was lots of talk about the problem and not a lot of solutions. And that doesn't get us anywhere. And that is the problem of what all levels of government have done on this issue for 25 years. It's not good enough. Every councillor has the opportunity to change this motion. Every opportunity to do it here tonight. If you've got an idea, put it to the test. Bring it to the chamber for your colleagues to consider.
All right, let's
bring it here this evening. It's too easy to lament on the issue rather than have a topical debate about a solution that you have deeply researched and you are passionate about. The way to solve the housing crisis, both ownership and rental, takes an enormous effort from all levels of government, but particularly the federal and state. The seeds of success of this problem sit with lower stamp duties on property transfers so people can move and downsize their houses. It sits with lower taxes to foster increased development so we increase the housing stock. A level playing field to ensure that we don't hand over a generation of renters into the welcoming hands of hedge funds and pension funds, because effectively that's what's happening at the moment with massive increases in land tax, particularly in the state of Victoria. It was previously thought that investment returns would never be sufficient enough on residential rental property because the economics never stacked up. It's easy for investment funds at scale to now get above 15%, which is an appalling indictment on all levels of government and the lack of investment. The reason you see lack of investment is function of market-based interest rates, which is fairly clear, but an enormous increase in the last 20 years of green tape and red tape. And that's something our level of government does control. Plus, there's an inconvenient truth in all of this that our population in real terms in Port Phillip is going backwards. It is not increasing. We are well below the population growth of Melbourne and many suburbs, which we lock up to development. Albert Park is going backwards in real terms, in actual terms rather. So there's less people living in every house. You're not developing the houses. I don't hear any councillors coming in here saying let's increase development yield in certain streets. We've just had a whole heap of people come here and talk about Fitzroy Street. It's when I sit on the Pride Centre rooftop and look around there, you see the complete lack of density on Fitzroy Street. There should be thousands of people living above that street, which would have a material impact on the street amenity. Give me the word, Councillor Martin. Amenity and the local economy and population. They're the sort of bold solutions that councillors should be bringing. In my 8 years on council, I haven't seen any councillors representing that either bring that to a council meeting to have us analyse it. Instead, our federal and state governments lock up land release. They make it harder and more expensive for families to build houses so they can build their Australian dream, and they force them further and further and further out in our ever-expanding city because more people are coming here. More people want to come here because it's a prosperous nation, that's true. But we do not have governments that have the foresight to plan for that growth, and we're part of that problem. When I joined this council, we were expecting population growth of 20, 30%. In that time, since 2016, we've had a meagre increase of 3%. In real terms, we're going backwards. Everyone complains about the government in 2012 rezoning Fisherman's Bend. My God, if they hadn't have rezoned it, what would be happening there now? Probably absolutely nothing, as we're seeing in other inner urban growth areas. There's not enough construction going on in inner city areas, and we've seen some reasons behind that in the media recently. It's too expensive to construct scalable properties in this country to create affordable housing. There's no incentive for small investors anymore to have properties, and we're seeing affordable rentals all over our country, and particularly in our cities, withdraw because states are increasing their taxes so substantially, and it's creating a massive and enormous impact on our most vulnerable people who are our youngest generation. It's a rockstar generation of those that are under the age of 30, and we're paying them a huge disservice by keeping them at home too long because they can't afford to get out of home and get an affordable rental, which has all sorts of impact on the workforce. And then we don't give them the support of affordable housing where they can actually go buy something because it needs solar panels. It needs double glazing. It needs certain backlogs in environmental standards. And
point of order, Mayor.
What's the point of order?
That one's an error of fact. I'd like to hear what buildings we're requiring solar panels on before they can be built.
I do know that is an error of fact. So
residential construction in Victoria, as I understand it, if we build a house, it requires a solar array.
Does not.
Doesn't require a solar array?
I do work in residential architecture. It does not require it.
My father ran a company that built 20,000 houses. I'm very sure that if you build a new property in a new housing development, it requires...
that in that maybe in that council they may have a different rule, but it's not the case. We do, like, for example, I'll just elaborate.
No, I understand that. We have different rules. We have different rules here, and I understand that.
Point of order,
building a house.
Yeah, okay, pause. Point of order.
There was a point of order. You made a ruling, and
no, happy to state the ruling. Happy to state the ruling.
Thank you.
So, come here with ideas and put them to the test. Don't complain about the problem because this problem is too big not to fix. As I said before, there's a generation of people that are getting a very, very raw deal, and they're the future of our country and of our community. They deserve affordable housing. They deserve a place that they can get out of home at a reasonable age so they're not playing Nintendo in their parents' basements at 38 years old. That's not a good outcome for anybody in society, but it takes people that really believe in a progressive Port Phillip to be progressive at the state and federal elections as well, not just to come to this council changer when there's a council election on to bring these issues to the fore. And I have some sympathy for you because this is the
All right, point of order. What is it?
49.3E, an error of fact. It wasn't just brought because of council elections. This has been a discussion that's long been brought to the table, especially by some people that have come to the chamber. So it's not related to an election.
I agree. Thank you. Error of fact. Keep going.
So don't just bring these issues here. You need to bring them to your state and federal representatives with the same passion. They don't listen, which is why you come here. Because this is the only level of government where someone can sit in a meeting, an official chamber meeting, and put your ideas, your concerns and your passion to your local representatives. You can't do that in the Parliament of Victoria. You can't do it in the federal Parliament in Canberra. You can do it here. So I understand why you're here, but the core focus of this problem at scale is with the state and the federal governments. So I embolden my colleagues, don't sit back and complain about the problem. Put the solutions up there and get the numbers to get them passed. Because what you're hearing from me and from many people is a willingness to solve this problem at scale, not just grandstand on an issue. Let's get some ideas to get it sorted with increased yield on our high streets and increased yield in our city where we're seeing our populations decline. It's not a good thing for now, and it's certainly not a good thing 10 years from now.
Thank you. All right, let's take that to the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, all those against? It's carried. All right. I'm going to just let you know I'm going to do one more. We'll go to the triangle and then we're going to take a break. All right, 10.1, the St Kilda Triangle Live Music Venue, Stage 2, Targeted Marketing, Engagement, Outcomes and Next Steps. Such long titles. Councillors, on this one, we're going to start with questions, but when I seek someone to move it, you'll need to insert whether it's option 1, 2 or 3, please, for the 3.6 item. Is that right? 3.5. Did that change? It should be 3.5. Yeah, for item 3.5. Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry. I see what you mean. Okay. Any questions of the officers in relation to report? Councillor Niagui?
I understand the attachment is confidential. Councillors or anybody else at council able to share with the public the amount of public contribution being considered by council as part of this project?
I'm referring to you, Joe.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. The report, the public report, does indicate the approximate cost of, the early estimate of the construction. We haven't got a figure that we can say that's definitive around what's required as a public contribution. There are different elements to the site. There's public car parking, there's public realm, and there's a building. All of those things would need to be considered as part of setting up any future procurement for success.
Councillor Niagui?
But to clarify, were there an actual figure in the attachment? Would a councillor or council officer be able to share that with the community?
Through you, Mayor, no, we would not be able to. Thank you.
Is a councillor able to say whether there was one? Not that I can't say the number, but would I be able to hypothetically state that there is a number in the attachment, if there were?
Through you, Mayor, I would have to take that question on notice and check the attachment for the details.
I missed the joke, but okay. Any other questions? No? All right. You have a question, Councillor Crawford?
It's kind of side-related, but it is about the issues that were raised by some of the people that spoke tonight. Are we planning to do, in line with whatever the decision is tonight, to look at actually getting accurate data around parking that currently exists? Are there a way to do sensors, the sea baths, the one, the skate park, Shakespeare Grove, a way so we actually have an accurate rather than just the hope? There's a lot of numbers or requests for more car parking, but we know that there's obviously lots of problems with going deep because of the water table and all of those things. Are we planning to do, or a future council could plan to do that kind of work in the meantime around actually having clear data to know how much parking we actually have and is utilised at various times?
Through you, Mayor, that is work that could be undertaken, and it's something that council could contemplate adding into the work program.
All right, follow-up question. Does it need to be explicitly said there to do work on parking?
So the option that includes undertaking further work, which is option 2, that could be included in that work program. That work program hasn't been defined, so that would be something that would need to be confirmed as part of that work program.
Is it safer for me to do an amendment to add it, if that's what we want, if council majority think to do that work?
Yeah, I think thank you, Mayor. I think if there's a piece of work that council explicitly wants to be included in that package, it could be added.
You're not going to? Okay. All right, Councillor Martin, question?
And if there was additional work added into option 2, what would be the costing? How would that be costed, and how would money be made available for that?
Through you, Mayor, the Option 2 is framed in that further work is required to map out that piece of work. That work is complicated and it hasn't been included in this package of work. So there's some planning that's required to identify what are the pieces of work, what would be the cost of that, and what is the staging of that work. There are some things that we know, but there is a little bit of work to map that out and confirm the scope.
Okay, Councillor Moran.
A clarifying question. Before the next council sits, would passing option 2 with that amendment have the potential to commit the current council to spending additional money on the Triangle project?
Through you, Mayor, yes, option 2 includes beginning work on that, and there's been 100k as a proposed budget. Noting, though, in the document that some planning work is required to confirm costs.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Sierrakoff?
Would option 1, with advocacy to state government, would that advocacy also possibly include looking at underground car parking?
Joe?
Through you, Mayor, option 1 is just purely advocacy to state government to engage with them on support for the project. So if council wanted us to include other work in that, you would need to specify.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, I'm looking for someone to move this. Something else, Councillor Bowen, what would you like to move?
Option 1,
Option
please,
1.
Madam Mayor.
Okay. Would someone like it to second option 1? Councillor Clark? Okay. Councillor Bowen, would you like to speak to it?
The thought of option 2 is very appealing, but I just don't think we're ready yet. It would also be probably not a correct decision to make this close to an election. I don't think we should be stopping work on this altogether, as our market sounding has returned information to us that there are people out there interested in this. There are some bodies that if we were to go option 2 and have a competitive market process, we would have 3 or 4 bidders, and they've said that to us, that they would participate in that process. But I think the wise path to take here is to have more conversations with the state government and get them on board before we proceed to any competitive market process, if that's how we were to proceed at some point in time in the future. We're fully aware that the state government doesn't have a lot of money at the moment, and I think Mary Stewart made the point that if they any spare money at the moment, it's probably going into the health system and won't go to a live music venue, or unlikely to go to a live music venue on the Triangle site at this point in time. But we certainly should be having conversations with them and let them know what we've got, where we got to, let them know the feedback we've had. And the situation where the state government has very tight budgets is not going to last forever. So if we have those conversations with them, we will be in the queue ready to go at whatever point in time in the future that they decide that they are in a better financial position or an opportunity arises for something to occur on this site. I think that's the wise choice of path to take at this point in time. I don't think we should stop everything, and I certainly don't think we're ready to go to market on a competitive market process. So options 1 is the one I'd like our councillors to support. It doesn't cost us anything. We don't do any further works other than at this point in time have some very strong conversations with the state government and let them know where we're at on this project and take it from there. And I think the wise thing 3 months out or 4 months out from a council election is to have those conversations with the state and let the new council decide whether they wish to pick this up and how they wish to proceed here, whatever the mix of that new council happens to be.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've spent a lot of time in council, and I thank the council officers for getting the proposal to the point that they have. It's been a huge amount of work and a lot of diligence from the councillors and officers to find a path forward and a project that actually is supported by or required by our community, and a gap in the market that we've identified that could be filled at this site. I think the transparency from council has been that we do need funding of a project of this scale, and we recognise that advocacy to state government is required, and as Councillor Bond said, it could be a longer proposition, but we have put a fair amount of money into getting the proposal to this stage, and at this point in the council's term, it is, in my opinion, appropriate to probably stop there. Continue on with advocacy. We don't want this project to cease altogether and be put on the shelves and gather more dust like many of the other proposals regarding the triangle, which is why I don't support option 3. And option 2, it's, as I said, it's not the right time in the cycle to probably invest further money. It may well be that we do need a detailed car park study, and there has been some done already, and there's a lot of issues around that. But yeah, I support option 1 to continue keeping the project alive. A new council can come in and take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next? Councillor Nyagui?
I don't support further work on the St Kilda Triangle. Given officers' advice, I won't speculate about the attachment, but I will note that I think it's in the community's interest to be able to read that report and fully understand the ramifications for the community and for council going forward, whether that be funding and other commitments. This is a site that has sucked a huge and kind of eye-watering amount of money out of this council over the last 25 years. It saddens me to see our council continue to push this cart up the hill and to continue to spend money and consider ways which we could activate this site when it's clearly not viable, in my view. I'd like us to look at better and more practical ways to improve the site. We can do planting, we can improve the crossing. And I think to continue to go down this road when there are so many other priorities, both that we should be advocating for funding from the state government, but also that we should be directing our own budget toward, things like the climate and housing crises, is just kind of staggering and shocking. I think there's also clearly concerns from some of the traders along the foreshore that I also don't think have been fully worked through yet. There is really a myriad of reasons why we continually come back to this project time and time again. It's like incredible amounts of money and time of our officers, of our councillor group, and yet the fundamentals remain that this is an extremely expensive site, and none of the projects to date, and I think that includes this one, have been able to get beyond the very expensive planning stage to actually delivering anything for our community.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next? No one. Councillor Bond. Oh, I'll just add quickly. I hear the concerns about parking, and I was considering if that needed to be added, but I'm making a note to do that separately, find out more information, and consider a future notice of motion if required on that parking work. I will be supporting option 1 as well tonight, as there's no cost. So even though I do have low hope that the state will come to the table at this time, I don't think it'll hurt to finish out a little bit further, but the next council will definitely have much more say on the future of this project. Okay, Councillor Martin.
Can I echo Councillor Cunsolo's words? I certainly wouldn't want to see this council and hopefully future council spend any further money on this project. Having said that, given all the work that's been done, I had a Catholic education. I was taught that there were miracles. I'm not sure I believe that now, but there may well be. It may well be that if we continue advocacy to the state government, they can find a partner who'll take on all that expense. I'm not saying it will happen. But if there's no cost to the council, if we leave the door open for 3 or 4 months, the next council can make a decision as to whether it wishes to commit any further council time and money to the project. As I say, I don't hold out a whole lot of hope that there'll be major changes over that time, but if there's no cost to the council, we leave the door open. I certainly wouldn't be keen for the state government to commit any significant sum of money. I echo Councillor Nyagui's concerns there as well. Having said, if there was a private developer prepared to put that in and work with the state government, if we were lucky that way, then that's a possible outcome. So I'll support option 1 somewhat reluctantly. I'd be keen to see what the new council does. I don't have high hopes that this will proceed beyond the first couple of months of the new council. Let's leave the door open for a few months, but and Councillor Bond, you can hope for the miracles that I was taught about when I was a young lad.
All right. Any further councillors adding to the debate? Otherwise, Councillor Bond, do you need to close? No? All right, let's go to the vote. All those in favour for option 1? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. All right, I foreshadowed a break. I'm going to make it a 9-minute break. Come back at 8:45, please. In the presentation reports, we are up to side chats. Please stop. We are up to 13.1, Station Pier and Waterfront Place, the draft scheme amendment GC 187. All right. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to the report? Councillor Pearl?
Simply put, explain to the folks at home what we're doing here.
Hello, Fiona.
Hello. Thank you for that question. Through you, Mayor, I can say this is largely a fix-up amendment. So back in 2016, to facilitate the lease operations of the port, an amendment went through to change the planning controls and to create the port zone and to make the minister the responsible authority. However, as part of that, the boundary still sits within the city of Port Phillip. This amendment changes that boundary to include the port zone within the Port of Melbourne planning scheme. It will also then, and only relates to land that is affected by the port zone, so it allows for the port to continue their lease operations.
Yeah. Thank you. Any further questions? No, looking for someone to move this? Yes, Councillor Pearl. Who would like to second? Councillor Martin? Okay, Councillor Pearl, would you like to speak to it? Councillor Martin, would you like to speak to it?
This has very little impact on what we do as a council. Some of us have grand visions for what should happen in that precinct. This motion has nothing to do with that. As is mentioned, it's just a fix-up amendment.
Thank you. I'll add, we have been looking for the gotcha. After many questions to the officers and the externals who've come in, none have been found. So it does appear and has been confirmed it's administrative in nature. But I will take every opportunity to advocate for the state and or federal government to show some enthusiasm for Station Pier and Waterfront Place, which is an important gateway to Melbourne. Anybody else want to speak to it? Councillor Pearl, you want to close? No? All right, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to 13.2. This is investment and Treasury management policy. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to the report? Questions? No? All right. Councillors, you have a officer's recommendation. Councillor Pearl, would you like to move it? Yeah. Who would like to second it? Councillor Bond, thank you. Councillor Pearl, would you like to speak to it? No. Councillor Bond, would you like to speak to it? Okay. Important things, guys. Anybody else speaking to it? Councillor Martin.
Very briefly, I understand the necessity to have very clear guidelines for the way we look after our money. Can I just highlight the section that talks about corporate and social responsibility? We're being very clear in the way that council will be managing its money, and we'll make sure that the places where our money is being kept are maximising social and environmental outcomes through the selection of financial institutions and investment products, which I think is a fantastic thing.
Thank you. Any further speakers? No. Councillor Pearl, do you want to close? No. All right, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. All right. Is that 13.3? I have a whole punch. Yeah, 13.3, South Melbourne Town Hall, the ANAM schematic design. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to the report? Councillor Pearl?
Thanks very much. Would officers please provide an overview of what our planning obligations are to this site in terms of as a responsible authority or thereafter, and also in relation to planning permits and building permits, please?
Through you, Mayor. So because under the planning scheme, because the South Melbourne Town Hall, as the name suggests, is a building that's used by council and is having a continued use by council even when ANAM's lease commences, there is no statutory planning requirement for planning approval for the works. Under the building regulations, a building permit is required, so council's works have commenced. We have a building permit in place for that. A second building permit will be required when ANAM undertake their works. I would note as well, given the heritage significance of the building, obviously all works must comply with Heritage Victoria's requirements.
Great. I just want to... can you scroll down, please? There. Okay, yeah. All right, so that's the officer's amendment. Yeah, if you could speak to that, Lachlan.
Through you, Mayor. Councillors, as you can see, there's an officer's amendment there at 3.35, which reads further development of the design of the proposed ramp at the main entrance to ensure that it meets crime prevention through environmental design SEPTED principles by not leaving a gap between the ramps. So, councillors, you'll note in the submitted drawings from ANAM, the ramp on Banks Street, which is providing accessible access up the stairs to get into the main entrance to the town hall. It has a blind corner in there. That's a public space. So to ensure that that public space can be maintained appropriately and that it meets SEPTED principles of safety, we are recommending that council place a condition on the approval of the schematic design for council officers and ANAM to work through the joint PCG to remove that gap on the ramp and ensure that it contributes to the public realm there safely.
Councillor Pearl. Thank you, Lachlan. Councillor Pearl.
Yeah, thank you. And just whilst we're talking about the ramp, I don't fully understand why we need a ramp at the front. We spent $400,000, well, ratepayers spent $400,000 on building a ramp at the side of the building, which is still there. And if I read the plans correctly, it's already there. So why do we need a ramp 30 metres, roughly 50 metres, call it, around the corner at the front of the building when there's already a ramp at the side of the building?
Lachlan.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, Councillor Pearl, you are correct. We did build that ramp on Layfield Street a number of years ago. It is still there. It will stay there and be operational as part of Council's works and as part of ANAM's proposed works. From what ANAM described to us, the intent of their operations is to use the front entrance as the main entrance for large events at the South Melbourne Town Hall. In accordance with universal design principles, they're trying to provide the opportunity for all members of the public to be able to access that entrance off Bank Street, rather than having people who may need to use the ramp go around to Layfield Street. So that's why they've included it in their design as it is at the moment. As I said before about the amendment, council officers do have some concerns about the design, and we will work, if passed tonight, we will work with ANAM to try and address them.
Councillor Pearl.
Have we considered any salvage values for the significant amount of money we spent on the 2 brand new lifts that are sitting in the building? When they get removed, can we sell them? Can we get some value out of them?
Through you, Mayor, yes, we are considering what we can do with both of those lifts. They are not that old. And given what occurred at the town hall, they haven't had a lot of use. So there's probably some salvage value there, and that's what we are intending to do. Because as councillors will note, in the design, ANAM are proposing to upgrade the lifts.
All right, any further questions on this item? Councillor Pearl? Oh, you want to move it?
Move, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Pearl, yep, you can move it. Who would like to second it? No, I will. Okay. Cunsolo, sorry, got in there first. Councillor Pearl, would you like to speak to it?
I'll reserve.
Okay, I'll just add, I think it is an exciting design. There's a lot proposed, some great images, and I'm really excited if that all can be achieved. Little things that when we look at the public realm of things that impact in the areas that we sort of control are that ramp. I know the original grand sweeping one was grand, and it would have been a very interesting feature, but it came too far into that public realm. So I appreciate they brought it back, but it is, and that's why I've asked for the change, it is leaving that little bit of place that antisocial behaviour could a magnet for it, possibly. I do think a ramp at the front, it sounds like the front will be their main entrance and it should be inclusive and everybody should be able to enter in the way that's intended. So I'd be supportive if they can close that gap a little bit where it doubles back on itself. Otherwise, I'm hoping this project keeps rolling forward and that we can see this go to a performance there not too long in the future. Anybody else speaking to it? Councillor Pearl, do you want to close?
this has been going on and on, but it's heading in the right direction. We don't, but the project still doesn't have the full funding required to realise the vision that we're seeing here. Council hasn't stopped in terms of our processes of making sure that the building gets to a place where it can be reopened, and well done to the officers for continuing that work. It's now over to ANAM to realise the vision of the plan, which we wholeheartedly probably support here this evening. This town hall is a very special place in our civic structure. It must be protected, but it must be utilised, and that's what this plan does. If this is brought to fruition, it will be substantially enhanced and substantially utilised for a very long time to come, plus also provide a cultural and generational benefit to our country that can't be underestimated, that should not be underestimated, rather. The thing that probably irks me slightly is when this does get finished, the rooms and potentially some items within the rooms will be named after benefactors, I assume, that will contribute an overall relatively small amount of money to the project compared to the total value of it. And ratepayers should not forget the amount of money that they've contributed to this building since, I think, ANAM occupied it since 1996. It was a heavily subsidised lease when ANAM went into it. The ratepayers of Port Phillip have contributed substantially to the education of those students indirectly, and also to ANAM directly. Plus, tens of millions of dollars of ratepayers' money is going into this project, indirectly and directly, to get our town hall back to a structurally sound situation. So the ratepayers of Port Phillip paid for this building to be constructed. We've paid for it to be maintained for a very long time. We own this building and we continue to invest in it, and that's not something that should be underestimated. But ratepayers and community members now and into the future should hold ANAM accountable and should expect a substantial community benefit based on what we are also providing, which should not be underestimated. Very happy to support the design here today, albeit I would encourage the ramp at the front of the town hall to be removed. But let's not get too down the rabbit hole on the individual design item at the front of the town hall. Very happy to support this project.
Thank you. All right, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right. That's the end of the presentation reports. We're on to notice of motions. Councillors, we have two notice of motions tonight. We'll start with item 14.1. It's a motion raised by Councillor Bond in relation to Fitzroy Street seating. This always seems a little bit backwards to me, but I have Councillor Bond moving this, so I'm looking for a seconder, and then we're going to go to questions. Why is that backwards? All right, I'm going to do it my way. Let's seek questions. Who has more questions on this one? Sorry, I can't take them for you, but from the councillors. Any further questions? All right, I'm going to ask based on some questions received by the public. Some of the works, people were asking about what we're doing on Fitzroy Street, like why aren't we doing the shop activations? Why aren't we doing, and they gave a lot of examples. Can you clarify what we are doing so the public is informed?
Through you, Mayor, we are doing via our Great Places and Precincts program comprehensive study of activations and improvements on our main streets, including Fitzroy Street. This project came from a street audit that was undertaken in November last year, which resulted in a range of recommendations. They will range from footpath repairs, lighting upgrades, public art, murals. The seating is one. We continue to invest in events and festivals in the area. So there is a wide range of initiatives from all areas of council that we are directing towards our high streets.
See you.
Through you, Mayor, I'd just also like to clarify that we have our local laws and our rapid response crew. We do street pressure washing. We also have connection with our social workers into a whole range of support services as well. The feedback that we've had from the police is that our local laws and our rapid response crew are excellent and do a very good job and are exceptionally responsive, and they really appreciate the relationship and the work that they do. We've also had significantly good feedback on their performance, in particular over the past couple of years, more broadly from the community as well.
Thank you. And then the development, I think we're referring to it as a Fortis development. What's the current status of that?
Through you, Mayor, we are assisting Fortis with a number of opportunities to temporarily activate the site. That would be at their cost, so they're considering a number of proposals at the moment, but we are doing everything we can to put forward options of how to get that site activated and open.
Okay. Depending on how long that's going to take, or say there's gaps in it, would they be able to put up some billboards about the exciting things coming to their development, maybe with some bright lights that would really deter the antisocial behaviour that's happening at the moment?
Through you, Mayor, a hoarding activation is one option that they're looking at, so certainly they could undertake any of those activities.
Do you have a time when that we might know what's going to happen there?
The last update we had was today, so I would hope within the next week.
Excellent, thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Okay. Councillor Bond, you want to move it? No, Councillor Nyagri seconding? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to read the motion. I, Councillor Andrew Bond, give notice that I intend to move the motion outlined below at the ordinary meeting of Council on 17th July 2024. That Council 1 requests officers to install 10 public seats on Fitzroy Street, St Kilda at the below locations. Site 1, 3 to 5 Fitzroy Street opposite Cleve Gardens, 2 chairs. Site 5, 43 Fitzroy Street, the Chemist Warehouse, 2 chairs. Site 7.5, 77 Fitzroy Street, Caremore Pharmacy, 1 chair plus bike hoops to be added, and the bike hoops referenced in this notice of motion have already been added. They were put in last week. The existing mushroom stools to be removed, and also the brown board hoarding at the back will also be removed and replaced with steel hoops, which I'll talk to a little bit later. Site 11A, 107 Fitzroy Street, Tom's Liquor, 1 chair. Site 11, 123 Fitzroy Street, the Hive co-working space, 1 chair. Site 13, 161 Fitzroy Street, Anytime Fitness, 3 chairs. 2, notes that all sites will be contingent on no underground services being identified below. 3, install barriers consisting of small metal hoops around Fitzroy Street garden beds to ensure the maintenance and vibrancy of the greenery planted. And the 4 locations for those hoops will be corner of Grey and Fitzroy, outside Bunny where the little fence was removed, Grey and Fitzroy where the fence was removed, and the 2 sides of Jackson and Fitzroy where we can see one side that had the fence, it's grown beautifully lush, and the other side that had nothing, it looks like a bare desert. So we're going to put something in there to protect them and replant those particular planter beds, just to explain the motion on the screen.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nyagri, would you like to speak to it? Oh, sorry. Got ahead of myself. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead and speak to it. It was lengthy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't talk for long on this, as this is a very minor item that shouldn't even be coming to a council meeting. However, circumstances have necessitated that this does come to a council meeting for a decision. 6 or 7 years ago, at the request of the police, we removed most of the seating on Fitzroy Street and covered other seating in pot plants and other items to ensure no one could sit down on those seats. This, we were told at the time, was meant to fix the antisocial problems on Fitzroy Street. It didn't change a thing, and to Councillor Baxter, who said at the time that removing seats wouldn't change a thing, you have been proven right. Tonight we have a chance to correct that error with a very minor seating proposal. We've heard for years that elderly members of our community want seating, and we heard that again tonight from the Older Persons Consultative Committee is their name. Advisory Committee, sorry, thank you very much for that. With the Ackland Street Post Office closing and the Fitzroy Street Post Office will see a greatly increased patronage. So we will have larger numbers of people which will probably tend to lean older, because older people use the post office more than younger people to pay their bills and pick up parcels and letters and things like that. We're going to see an increased patronage of older people on our street. This was discussed extensively with the Traders Association on multiple occasions, and all Fitzroy Street businesses on our database were emailed with details of the seating proposal, and only one objection was received from those emails.
Sorry, point of order, Mayor.
Yes?
I'm hearing the word bullshit coming from the gallery.
Thank you for state. If we could pause real quick. I really need people to be quiet in the gallery. If I don't have people following my direction, I'll have to either adjourn the meeting, ask people to leave. All these results, and it's not getting to the decision tonight and doing our business. It needs to be an orderly meeting. Please refrain from speaking in the gallery. Okay. Thank you for the point of order. Keep going, Councillor Bond.
This was discussed extensively with the Traders Association on multiple occasions, and all Fitzroy Street businesses on our database were emailed with details of the seating proposal. Only one objection was received. I've spoken to many businesses that want seating and many others that don't see the seating as the cause of the problems. I've spoken to many residents that want seating. So tonight we're going to ignore all of the misinformation that has been circulated about these seats and what is proposed, mostly by one group with their members, associates, followers, whatever you want to call them. And we're going to install just 10 seats on Fitzroy Street, and I urge my fellow councillors to support this. And I apologise for having to waste your time with a very menial motion that should never come to us, that officers should be able to install under delegation on Fitzroy Street.
Thank you. Councillor Nyagri, would you like to speak to it? Okay. All right. I'd like to go next and raise an amendment, please. Yeah, thank you. Oh, you have to type it up. Oh, sorry. Okay. Can I read while you go? Okay. All right. So, request officers to install a total of 9 seats on Fitzroy Street. On site 7, it removes the chair, but retains the rest. That's 77 Fitzroy Street, removing the seat there. Going to remove the next 3, which is 107 or site 11A, site 11, and site 13, but add 2 more sites at 135 Fitzroy Street and 179 Fitzroy Street. And just a clarifying question. I made up site 14 and 15. Was there any previous numbers? Because the numbers are inconsistent. I'm not sure if I need to reference different numbers. They're fine. So it's 3 seats at Alex Theatre, please. And 3 times, yeah. And site 15. That's, yeah, Barbara with the dot, yep. And that's 2 seats, please. Yeah, thanks. Maybe you can do, would it make sense to do the red in the parts slashed out too? Thank you. I know it's hard to type on the fly. All right. And I'll need someone to second that. Councillor Sirikoff to second. Hold on, let's get my notes. Amendment. Sirikoff. Okay, thank you. All right, I'll speak to this, then Councillor Sirikoff. Other people will vote on the amendment, and we'll see what ends up in the substantive. All right. I understand there's a lot of concern about this, saying defer until the development's done, not the time, confused about the police advice being conflicting, and I agree with a lot of that. What I'm trying to find is a middle ground of trying to persuade the fellow councillors tonight that we've still ended up with a result that is delivering seating on Fitzroy Street, but removing from the 2 hot spots, which is 77 Fitzroy Street and the 123 Fitzroy Street, the 2 chairs, which is consistent with the advice that's in the notice of motion from the police to remove the hot spots. There's been discussion at Tom's Liquor, and there's maybe wanting to do some outdoor trading. I want to take them on the word and give them the opportunity to look at that perhaps in the future. If that doesn't pan out and there's a need for more seating, maybe it comes back. But discussions with Alex Theatre and Barbara's site have requested seats. And adding those ones disperses it further up, closer to the junction, of more opportunity along that street to provide seating. What's not seen here, and which I do think is actually relevant, is the other side of the street too. There are, within the block between Canterbury and the beach, definitely 2 seats closer up to Canterbury, and many in Cleve Gardens. But that's a really nice side of the street too. I do think the intent was to add seating on this shopping, to deliver from a shopping point of view. But it is really challenging when there's a lot of antisocial behaviour to say, let's stick with urban design principles, but yet the behaviour won't let people really sit there and utilise them to begin with. So whilst we are working with the police, we are working with activating the street, doing the best to keep it moving forward in the fragile state it is currently in. This is where we can find a happier landing point to deliver some of the intent without the concerns that are being raised as well. Now, I understand that we can't ask everybody where they want bins because you struggle to find consensus. And we have to look at a street and deliver them for the public realm, and that includes seating too. So the process, although I wouldn't necessarily want to repeat it because there's definitely a lot of community input that we're receiving tonight, I can see where we need to do this a little bit through the ward councillors, through the Trade Association, but I think that people should probably be able to have a say, slightly, some feedback. Maybe not a yes or no, but some feedback, because the traders have the best insight in the street. They're there nearly every day. They know what and where things would be best placed. I think it's a good conversation to have with them, and I would encourage to do that. I know I'm going to miss more of my speech, but I'll leave it at that for the amendment. Please, councillors, consider that you still have 9 seats on Fitzroy Street, removing the hot spots as the police have said they'd like, and adding to people who want these seats as well. Councillor Sirkoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over the past few days, I've spent quite a number of hours walking the majority of Fitzroy Street from one end to the other, from the junction down to the Esplanade. The purpose was to speak to as many traders and businesses as possible about the proposed seating on Fitzroy Street so that I can make an informed decision tonight. I will first speak to the seating listed in the notice of motion and responses from businesses at most of the originally proposed locations. One, at 43 Fitzroy Street, Chemist Warehouse, the manager told me that he was opposed to any seating at the front of their business. 2, 77 Fitzroy Street, Caremore Chemist plus 2 staff from the Pride Centre are not supportive told me that they're not supportive of any seating in the nearby area, along with the removal of, and want to have the removal of the mushrooms. They are, however, very happy with lots of bike stand hoops being installed in that area. 3, the business at 77 Fitzroy Street was alarmed to hear of any seating outside their premises, as they have intentions to seek footpath trading approval and were not informed of the proposed seating in this motion. We have all received an email from the owner at 123 Fitzroy Street, the Hive working space, and that they do not support any seating. The manager, number 5, the manager Heath at 161 Fitzroy Street does not want 3 or any seating out the front of their business, as they daily have persons tailgating their clients onto their premises and stealing goods from their clients, and also from their own business goods. So their concerns are around persons loitering on seating at the front of their business. From my survey of the traders and businesses, nearly all said no to any seating, and especially at the hotspots. The exceptions that are here now before us, the exceptions to no seating, that is, they do want some seating, were from 1, 2 business owners at the Alex Theatre, who we all know, who were very enthusiastic to have 3 seats out the front of their theatre, and also a pet shop manager just a little bit further down the street who would also like a seat. Secondly, further down, closer to the junction, both the Space Cafe and the Barber shop would also like to have seating where there is none. Given that we have been presented with a petition to request council to not install seating at the hotspots, and given that the police inspector has also informed council that while they are supportive of street seating, they are not wanting seating in the hotspots currently, given the current climate of Fitzroy Street, and would like to see council delay and review the seating. Given all this feedback, we should relocate the seating from the hotspots to further down this Fitzroy Street near the Alex Theatre, where there is no public seating and where the businesses do welcome it, and move seating from Fitness Anytime at 161 Fitzroy Street closer to the junction where businesses are also interested in seating. We should also consider for the next 12 months or so, monitor the dynamics and the social behaviour of the hotspots with no seating and see if the situation improves. If no seating improves at the hotspot locations, then council could consider to install seating even longer. However, if no seating does not improve the social behaviour, then council could then reconsider and install seating. Council does have 3 spare seats to install. Let's just delay any seating at the hotspots and monitor and relocate the seating to those locations where they do want seating. And secondly, listen to the requests of the community, our residents, our traders and the police. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to add to the amendment debate? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, certain sections of Fitzroy Street are in a terrible state with crime, drug taking, dealing, antisocial behaviour, resulting in a genuine concern for the residents, the traders and visitors to the precinct. The existing seating has inadvertently and unfortunately aided the people who are involved in the crime and worsened the outcomes for people walking down the street, the traders, businesses and even workers at the Pride Centre. In an ideal world, no one in their right mind would say we don't want seating on a street for people. However, the amenity of the street, in particular the hotspots that we're talking about around 121 and 77 Fitzroy Street, would not be used by the needy people, but the drug dealers and others who are causing all the problems in that particular area of Fitzroy Street. This motion seeks to, I guess, find the balance between the original motion and the concerns of the traders and the residents. And I think it is the right. We do want some seating. I don't think it's a huge change to remove it from that section of Fitzroy Street. And then we can get potential agreement and support the community with that. We have a police inspector's email that he sent to us saying that they do not support. His words were, they oppose on behalf of Victoria Police the installation of new seating infrastructure, specifically outside 77 Fitzroy Street and 121 and 123 Fitzroy Street, St Kilda. The existing seats outside Fitzroy Street, 77 Fitzroy Street, is viewed by Victoria Police as highly problematic in the context of existing social and public order challenges on that location. And he goes on to say he respectfully requests that Council remove the existing seating as a matter of priority and delays until a further review the replacement of the same. So I don't think it's sensible to put up a motion that contravenes the police's request, and I think this amendment to the original motion is a common sense suggestion. We have worked very hard with the police over the last 4 years. We listened to their wise counsel, and I see no reason to change that approach today. So for those reasons, I will be supporting this amendment and urge my fellow councillors, for the sake of the residents and the traders and the police and the general amenity. It's not a perfect solution, but this, at least, as I said, tries to find a balance for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else speaking? Okay, Councillor Martin.
Firstly, can I thank Councillor Bond for bringing this notice of motion. As a member of OPAC, I can assure you that the older persons Advisory Committee is very, very keen to get as much additional seating in major shopping centres as possible. Earlier today we had the Deputy Chair of OPAC, Richard, came to speak to us. What he was going to say, but he ran out with his last 2 minutes. I'll quote what he would have said. Public seating in shopping areas is very important for increasing passing foot traffic and socialisation. We need more of it, and it needs to be good seating. I believe that it's self-defeating to address loitering problems by reducing public seating. You're throwing out the baby with the bathwater, if you ask me. So that's a comment from the Deputy Chair of OPAC. I rang the Chair of OPAC on Friday when the council papers came out just to confirm that OPAC was supportive of additional seating in Fitzroy Street, and she assured me that OPAC was. I then contacted the Pride Centre because I'd been sent information to say that the Pride Centre was not in favour of any additional seating. That's not the information that came back. If you just bear with me while I find their email. So, thank you for getting in touch, Councillor. We support the SEPTED concept and also the installation of the seat and bike hoops at 77 Fitzroy Street. We look forward to these additions in Fitzroy Street. So, the Pride Centre, very keen to look forward to that as well. So, I'm not as wedded as Councillor Bond is to the exact location of the street, but given that I'm a council rep on both the LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee and OPAC, and both of them have supported the concept in general. I think it's really, really important that we get these additional seats in. As I said, I understand Councillor Bond has put a fair bit of work into looking at where the seats go. I'm not so wedded to that, but I think it's really, really important that either the alt-rec or the original motion get up so that the older people are able, certainly older people in particular, are able to find some respite from walking around and have those important rests as they're heading towards the post office, since they've just lost one of the post offices a little bit further up the road. So I'm still working out whether I support the amendment or the original motion, but I sincerely hope that at least one of these two gets up.
Thank you. Anybody else speaking to the amendment? No? Ready to go to the vote? All right. Voting on just the amendment. All those in favour? All those opposed? Okay, that's carried. All right, so
division,
it
Mayor.
becomes a substantive, so there's actually no... Oh, sorry, question?
Division, Mayor.
Division, okay. Let's do it again. All those in favour? Sirikoff, Martin, Pearl, Cunsolo, Clark. All those against? Bond, Crawford, Baxter, Niagwe. Thank you, that's carried. Pardon? Okay. I know there may be some people who want to clear the gallery. I'm going to take 2 minutes. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. Okay. Yep, sorry. It's... What? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Need these ladies. Let's get back to it. But isn't it now...
That's the substantive. We need to do another vote. That's become the substantive.
Isn't it the same? But even though substantive is the exact same thing?
Yeah. Through you, Mayor.
Okay, I'll follow the governance advice. We have to do another vote. So, yeah, can we still speak? Okay, sorry. All right, I'm back in the game. Okay, so far we've only had on the substantive Bond and Niagwe. So everybody else who has not been said can speak. Who would like to speak to the substantive? Pearl.
Yeah, I'm happy to support the substantive motion now. And I think it's important to identify something. There is no greater supporter for St Kilda and Fitzroy Street than Councillor Bond. If it wasn't for Councillor Bond, there would be no CCTV in Fitzroy Street. There would have been very limited trader support in Fitzroy Street. And he's the only councillor I've seen consistently in the last 8 years that's been on that street with local laws officers. And just for a moment, let's talk about those local laws officers and the very difficult job that they have, being at the cold face of a very difficult situation. So I've been a bit perplexed in the past week or so as he, I think, has been unfairly targeted for calling in what the officers were already doing. He's not seeking to change anything. The council was already doing this under delegation. there were other councillors that didn't want this to happen, that didn't take any opportunity to bring a motion to council to stop this from happening. So Councillor Bond here this evening is just trying to affirm what council was already doing, and other councillors chose not to come in and stop it. And he has been unfairly targeted by many people in the past week in our community. I think the motion here that's amended will significantly disappoint Councillor Bond, and I'm sorry for that, but I think the balance here is perfectly reasonable based on the feedback that we've received and based on what I've seen on the streetscape in the past couple of weeks. I would like to see those chairs added to those areas in the future. I personally believe it's not the right time to do it. And Councillor Bond, you may think I'm duchessing you with my comments here this evening. I'm not. I, as I know other councillors are very grateful for the contribution you've made to Fitzroy Street, and nobody here, I think, on this council questions your motives for bringing this motion here this evening, and thank you for doing it.
Speaking of the substantive, anybody else? Okay, Councillor Crawford.
You're all sick of hearing me say this. I worked and been part of Fitzroy Street for over 20 years. And let me tell you a little story. This is not a new problem, and it's a very heightened time, and there are very real concerns. And all of the concerns that I've heard expressed tonight lie within the remit of the police. But it's complex social issues that haven't been resolved in over 20 years, and they will, and they have waxed and waned. And I think that to pretend that a seat or not a seat in any particular location will solve these, that's what the two issues have become conflated, is just, it's magical thinking. And I know why you want the magical thinking, that it will all get resolved. But a lot of what you've come and talked to council about tonight lies squarely with the police and what they can do. Now, in the over 20 years, people have always gathered on that corner, whether there's a seat there or not. And it is irrelevant to the complexity of the social issues ahead of us. Firstly, it was St Cleeve's Gardens, and we didn't like them gathering there, so then we got rid of the toilets and the seats there. And then it was the closing of the Gatwick that was going to solve all the social problems on Fitzroy Street. Then it was the removal of the seats 8 years ago, and then it was putting in CCTV. And in the meantime, council has invested in, as officers have mentioned, pop-up shops, landscaping, lights, fast turnaround, graffiti, rapid response, increased local laws, working with joint patrols with the police. There's our Port Phillip Zero. We've housed more homeless people in our city in the last few years than ever before. There's the Pride Centre. There's pretty shop fronts, all ahead of Frankston. And there are waxes and wanes. So there's just, I have to admit, I am actually, again, I'm furious tonight. Some of the abuse that various councillors have been sent and subjected to on the basis that we're not doing anything, or that these seats are the problem, is just, it's juvenile, it's puerile, and we expect better from our community. I don't mind debating things, but some of the abuse that people have been receiving is not on. So the biggest complex issue is antisocial issue that long has been held in, when there's people and society. Council cannot deliver on some of the outcomes you want in that space. It is with police, social services, mental health services. But the elephant in the room has been landlords for a long time. As retail changed and they refused to lower their rents to address some of the empty shops, which have led to the dereliction of the street. And they have the changing economic conditions. They have not come to the party. So let's also point the finger where the finger belongs. And council, this has just introduced rates, increased rates to encourage more empty shop fronts, to have people, for landlords to do the right thing. They have added to the dereliction of the community. I get the fear and concern, I totally do. But again, back to, this is not a problem of council, it's a problem for police and other services that is not council. But I do want to go to what Councillor Pearl said before, we should stop coming complaining about things. We should bring big, bold, innovative ideas to help solve these big, complex societal issues, all levels of government, all organisations. So, you know, I think collectively all of the agencies need to work together, like council working to build more common grounds, advocate to state government for more innovative release from jail programs, support for those who need it, keep the mobile CCTV layer on the corner for a long period of time. Let's talk about the big, bold ideas rather than pretending that a seat is the problem and a seat is going to fix or make anything worse. That is just insane. So there's an amendment. I'm going to vote for it because we want seats for people to use. But I'm just going to ask the community, please, councillors are human beings too, officers are human beings too, and the amount of abuse around this and other issues, it's not on. And I'm talking to the community, the people in the chambers. It's not on. People at home, it is not on. So let's get back to actually talking about the real problems and how we really solve it, and not behave in a manner that is not decent for our community. And that I'm talking to councillors too in this equation. So I'm sorry, Councillor Bond, we're not going to get... But you know what? The problem will be there next week and we can go, see, it wasn't the seats. I don't want to say, yeah, we were right. But I do want to get together and work about these big, bold issues and stop focusing and having toxic debates on toxic social media sites. I'm pretty furious tonight, so let's be better, all of us in this space.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Anybody else adding to the substantive debate? Otherwise, ready to go to the vote? All right, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. As foreshadowed, I need a quick break. So what's the time? It's 9:35. Let's come back at 9:40, okay? Sorry. We are now to 14.2. Ready? 14.2, a notice of motion raised in relation to Barak Beacon. I raised this and I gave the conflict of interest. I need to read that again right now. Okay, so I'd like to declare an interest in relation to item 14.2, notice motion in relation to Barak Beacon. I'm currently renting a property nearby for a limited period, and while I do not believe this creates a general material conflict of interest, in the interest of full transparency, I'm placing it on the public record. All right, councillors, do you have any questions of the officers or myself in relation to this? Councillor Pearl?
Yes, where are we with the approval of the design or otherwise, or the permit? As in, where's the approval from the state government at the moment?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Council officers have been advised that just to be clear, the permit in terms of the building?
No, sorry, the approval for the plans and design of this site by the Minister. And have they been released to the public?
Our understanding is that the Minister has, after taking into account submissions, including the submissions that Council has made a decision, and that, however, that decision has not been publicly announced, or the outcome of that decision has not been announced.
Okay, thank you. A question for me: have the public had a response to the community feedback? I sent an email this morning asking about that. Did you have an update?
Sorry, I just missed the first part of that.
Yeah. So, is there a response to the community feedback that the state's received that would be provided to the community? The response?
No, there's been no response to the community in relation to their feedback. There was an announcement by the government last week, which included a number of matters, including proceeding with the Barak Beacon, as was identified as part of that government statement, but no details were given and no feedback to the community was given in relation to the feedback that had been provided to the state.
Has Council had any discussions with the state about a make good, any change on Beacon Road to the 5 existing crossovers that now are obsolete?
Council officers have engaged with the state to seek a better outcome in relation to those crossings, but have not really received any satisfactory or response.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, councillors, I'm moving this. Yeah, question?
When we say write to state government, who are you writing to? Because I did have a conversation which I've forgotten to say that it's probably Homes Victoria. It's past the planning. So when we say state government, who exactly are we writing to?
So through you, Mayor, at a departmental level, we've been communicating with the department.
Thank you. Councillor Pearl?
And the two items here we're advocating for specifically in this letter are already in our original submission.
Just considering them, I'm very confident about the second dot point, and if I just...
The 5th or 6th of March meeting, there was an amendment that changed crossovers to the other street. I wasn't there, but that's my recollection and what this is based on. Okay.
So, stupid question, why do we need a motion to do this? If it's already council policy and we can write a letter to whoever to advocate for council policy.
Can I answer why I brought this? I have grave concerns that if there's no change to at least circulation, that it's going to result in, say, 40 car spots being removed on Barak in order for it to have that two-way traffic it's going to need to service all the inner streets and the new development. So when we lose that car parking, that's going to have to be on us because it's our straight local road. And people are going to say, what did you do? And this is trying to just give people the points that we say we are not happy, quite livid with what has been decided, and that we are going back to make that point. That's my answer. Any other questions? So I'm moving this. Anybody second it? Councillor Pearl second. Okay. Sorry, one Pearl to second. Okay. I've pretty much just revealed exactly why. I'm absolutely livid that this has happened. It's very unfair. Beacon Road is a much bigger road. There's 5 existing crossovers, none of which are going to be utilised. They're just going to sit there as scars. There's no budget on our side to make good. There's no budget from the state to make good. You're just going to have these crossovers where people are going to pull up, drop off stuff, maybe illegally park, and it compromises the bike path that was already what people try and preserve to not compromise. It's a poor outcome for the area. It is devastating to these inner workings. There's very, very small streets. People rely on them. The driveways, the ability to park your car on the site, they're not wide enough to get a modern car on these sites, so people park in the street. If they can't park in the street on both sides, especially with the more people, that's a loss to the area. There's the beach. There's a big influx of people in the summer, but more importantly, to be able to get people in and out of these streets safely, to have two-way traffic that needs it, we have to demand that they look at this again. It's not a big change. The crossovers are there. They can do it. We just have to push again. Councillor Pearl?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for bringing this here this evening. You don't necessarily need this motion here. You can go and do this right now because you have our blessing to do it. So don't worry about waiting for motions. Write to whoever you think is the right person to write to, and maybe get 100 of your closest and nearest and dearest Port Melbourne friends to deliver it. When you take it to the Minister's office, perhaps, might be a more effective way than using Australia Post, which can be a bit slow and unreliable these days. But use every tool at your disposal to get an outcome that we've already approved through these council chambers. We support you in that.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to it? Councillor Martin?
This is probably the biggest concern in the Port Melbourne Beacon Cove area at the moment. There have been a number of concerns expressed about the Barak Beacon housing development. Most of them are concerns expressed by only a small minority of people. This one is a common concern with most of the residents in the area, so I think we should support our local residents.
Thank you. Anybody else? Otherwise, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous, or that's carried. Anybody against? Abstain? Okay, carried. All right, thank you guys. That's the end of notice of motions. So do we have any reports by councillor delegates? No? All right, urgent business. Does anybody have an item of urgent business to raise? No, otherwise there is an additional agenda item. This is a notice of Arbiter's decision and statement of reasons. Councillor, the CEO has requested, and I have agreed, to include an additional item to tonight's agenda, being a notice of Arbiter's decision and statement of reason in relation to a matter between Councillor Sirikoff and Bond and Councillor Niagui. The decision was received yesterday, and under Section 147 of the Local Government Act 2020, Councillor is required to table this at tonight's meeting. Councillors, given this is a requirement, we are not going to be moving, seconding, or voting on this matter tonight. The wording that will be captured in the minutes for this item is now on the screen. Okay. Do I need to read it? No? Okay. I will now refer to Councillor Niagui to address this matter as required by the Arbiter's decision.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, can I thank the Arbiter and Council staff for their support and professionalism throughout this process. This has been an extremely distressing process to go through, and I appreciate their work. I always try to give voice to the concerns and passions of our community. The events of last year deeply upset many in the queer community, and my social media post was an attempt to give them voice. It was never my intention to be abusive, disrespectful, or misleading, but unfortunately, that is what occurred in this social media post. I'm deeply sorry for the distress caused to Councillor Bond and Sirikoff. I should have held myself to a higher standard, and it makes me sick to think that my post used words that were abusive and disrespectful. I am sorry. I should not have misled the public as to their views on the action plan. I should have said that they did not vote for the action plan, as they did not vote against it. I should also have acknowledged when they did support the action plan. I am sorry. I must finally apologise to Councillor Sirikoff for causing her great distress by the linking of the decision to cancel the Drag Storytime event with actions taken by neo-Nazis. There are some other parts of this report which I think are incorrect, but in these findings I have no disagreement, and I give my sincere apology. Finally, I must say that I am sorry that I have, through this social media post, become part of the increasingly toxic culture among councillors at Port Phillip. I abhor misconduct and will work every day to ensure that my failure here is never repeated. Unfortunately, after an incident earlier today, this toxic culture has risen to a level that makes me no longer feel safe in this work environment. I will be taking a leave of absence effective immediately until the previously agreed mediation session has occurred with councillors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Niagui. All right, councillors, I'm going to move us on to confidential matters. We have two confidential reports on the agenda, being 17.1 Plumbing and Gas Fitting Service Contract Award, 17.2 Contract Award, St Kilda Festival Production Management Services. Closing the meeting. I now call upon a councillor to move that the meeting be closed to members of the public to consider the confidential items. Councillor Martin, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Clark. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Councillors, we will now conclude the public part of the meeting.
Just a clarifying question. Was that a request to take leave that we need to consider in a council meeting?
Can I close the meeting and clarify that?
Oh, sure.
Okay. I advise members of the public that there are no further open items to be discussed. This will be the conclusion of the public meeting. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you all.